Punk, I haven't been able to find you, but I finally met you here today. Bad luck. The person speaking seemed to be very angry, as though he had caught a long-time enemy. Emo recognized who it was. It was Ching Sun from Hua University. It seemed that he resented him quite a bit, and probably thought of him as a love enemy. Brother Sun, who is this punk? A youth from behind Ching Sun walked up. His hair was dyed yellow and had a girl that was younger than 20 in his arms. Ching Sun didn't turn around and casually said, "This is the guy that tricked away Yang Qing. Didn't think I would meet him here. Qi Bing, call up a few people. I'm going to beat him until his dad doesn't even recognize him." "But Brother Sun, what about Yang Qing?" the yellow-haired youth casually asked. Ching Sun subconsciously looked at the bar ahead and said, "Next time then, since I have one chance, I'll have another. But since we met him today, we can't let him escape." Emo sneered and couldn't even be bothered paying attention to Ching Sun. He carried Tingting and walked towards the bar. "You want to die." Ching Sun saw Emo acting so arrogant, ignoring him and just walking away, causing him to immediately get triggered. He raised his hand and grabbed towards Emo, wanting to subjugate him. Although he couldn't fight on the streets, he couldn't let Emo get away. "Ching Sun, what are you doing?" As soon as Zhuo Yangqing and another girl walked to the door of the bar, she saw Ching Sun grab towards Emo. The moment she saw Emo, she felt really happy to be able to see him again. That day after Emo left, she had called him countless times but wasn't able to reach him. She even thought Emo was lying, but her cousin Zhuo Huatang indeed recovered. Just as soon as Ching Sun heard Zhuo Yangqing's words, he felt this huge power kick into his chest. He was kicked flying a few meters away, crashing into a bin. Qi Bing also looked at Emo in shock, even forgetting to help Ching Sun up. He didn't expect Emo to be so strong. He clearly knew that even if he called up people, what could they do to him? "Hurry up and piss off. Do you want me to kick you again?" Emo yelled at the yellow-haired guy. Qi Bing reacted and quickly ran to Ching Sun. As he left, he added, "You dare attack Ching Sun, you're goner." At this moment, Zhuo Yangqing had rushed in front of Emo. She also saw Emo's kick and yelled out in shock. Emo noticed the girl beside Zhuo Yangqing. She was as good-looking as Zhuo Yangqing. The delicate expression in her eyes made her seem more attractive than Zhuo Yangqing. Her eyes were big and seemed very innocent. At least, nothing unlikable could be seen from the surface. People couldn't help to like her just looking at her innocent and delicate look. Zhuo Yangqing had reacted. She didn't expect Emo to be so strong. It seemed he was not only a master of medicine, but also in martial arts. This made Zhuo Yangqing excited as she charged up, grabbing Emo and saying, "Dr. Yi, I didn't think you were so strong. Ching Sun is a member of our school's martial arts association." But soon, she found that Emo's attention was on the girl who came with her. She pouted and said, "Hey uncle, don't look at her with eyes like wolves, please. She is the prettiest girl in our school. Don't even think about it. Don't forget you're a big uncle." Zhuo Yangqing immediately changed Emo's title from doctor to uncle. She was rather unsatisfied. She came up to greet Emo, but he treated her like air. Hearing Zhuo Yangqing's words, the girl called Shuang walked up and shyly said, "Hello, senior student. I'm Yangqing's classmate, Nie Shuang." Emo suddenly felt a little cold. He couldn't tell why he felt that way. His spirit sense noticed that when Nie Shuang looked at his kick, there was a ray of astute. She wasn't as shy as she acted at all. There was this sense from her that made him feel cold. Emo's sense were right because he had spirit sense. This Nie Shuang wasn't simple, even a bit eerie. "You're Nie Shuang? Do you live in Beijing?" Emo's questions made Zhuo Yangqing more unhappy. It seemed that Emo was really taking an interest into Nie Shuang. He had never asked who she was the first time he saw her. Nie Shuang lowered her head in worry. Although she was sure Emo couldn't see, she didn't know Emo had spirit sense, and her expression was caught completely by Emo. Zhuo Yangqing spoke at this moment. "Uncle Emo, stop asking. Shuang is living at her auntie's house, and she doesn't really like to talk. If you want to ask something, just ask me. But don't chase Shuang. As for why, don't ask. Xianxia is a person with misfortune. And she's scared of talking to guys. Emo nodded, although he didn't know Xianxia, but he knew she was completely wrong. His spirit sense found a rather strong sense of the other sex. This woman was not only not a shy girl, but instead a very lustful girl. He didn't know why Zhu Yangqing would stay with a girl like that, but Emo knew it wasn't something he could manage. As long as it didn't harm her, he wouldn't care. But at this moment, Xianxia secretly studied Emo, and her eyes happened to be caught by Emo. Her face blushed more. Of course, Zhu Yanqing also saw Xianxia's glance and felt annoyed. These two were mutually attracted and ignored her as though she was air. Was she that ugly? Emo had decided to ask his sister about her. If his sister knew about her, she would tell his sister to stay away from her. This woman wasn't easy to mess with. He wanted to remind Zhu Yangqing, but he resisted the urge after seeing Zhu Yangqing's face. He casually said, "I have some business at the bar. You guys have fun." "Wait, we also want to go to the bar. It's rare that Xianxia want to come out for a drink, so I'll be going with her," Zhu Yangqing immediately said. Then, she looked at Tingting in Yemo's arms and asked, "Brother Yi, this girl is so cute. Who is she?" Yemo wanted to cry and laugh. In the short brief moment, Zhu Yangqing called him with 3 different things. He remembered what Qi Bing said. Qi Bing and Qing Sun obviously knew Zhu Yangqing was coming to this bar. How did they know? Thinking about this, Yemo casually asked, "Qing your uncle is my friend and you're still studying at school. It's not a good thing coming to the bar, especially this far from your school." "Pfft, Uncle, Brother Yi, how much older are you than me? Stop talking to me like that. Xianxia wanted to come out for a drink today, not me. She said she liked here, so we came," Zhu Yangqing nonchalantly said. Then, she immediately said, "The recipe you gave us last time, my aunt has prepared it. Can you go back with me today?" Xianxia pulled Zhu Yangqing's clothes, wanting her to stop talking. However, Zhu Yangqing still said, "What are you scared of? We're all adults, just coming out for a drink." Emo looked again at Xianxia, thinking that it was indeed because of her. It seemed that Zhu Yangqing was being sold and still counted money for her. This girl was too dumb, and this Xianxia was too insidious. Thinking about this, Emo said, "In that case, let's go drink together on me." The reason he wanted to help Zhu Yangqing was due to Zhu Aigua. Zhu Aigua was a good person, and he seemed to look after Zhu Yangqing quite a lot. "But Yangqing, sorry, I think Brother Yi is right, so I won't go." Xianxia spoke and secretly looked at Emo. Her eyes were blossoming more red, rendering the sense of an innocent girl. "Xianxia, you're so pretty. No wonder Uncle Yi is interested in you." Even Zhu Yangqing could see Xianxia's beauty. "Yangqing, don't talk like that. I'm going back. You must have some business with Brother Yi. I won't disturb you guys. I'll be going first." Suddenly, Xianxia looked at Emo again before suddenly taking out a small pink paper from her pocket and giving it to Emo. "Brother Yi, this is my number." Her voice was very soft. She didn't even say goodbye to Zhu Yangqing and ran off. Her face still seemed flushed with embarrassment. Emo looked at the paper and shook his head, thinking that if it was a normal person, perhaps he would call her at night. However, she found the wrong person. Zhu Yangqing said in a strange tone, "Xianxia, this girl is being anthemaniac today. I've never seen her give her phone number to someone else without being asked." Emo sneered. Never seen it? If she never did, would she make her phone number into such an exquisite card and put it in her pockets? It was obvious it was prepared. Brother Yi, don't tell me you're in love with Xianxia?" Zhu Yangqing asked after seeing Xianxia was long gone. Emo frowned but didn't talk. He was thinking who Xianxia was and what was her purpose in Huayuni. If her sister wasn't there, it wouldn't matter so much, but she was. It was very dangerous to have someone like that in Huayuni. "What? If you like her, then you do. It's not like I'm gonna tell everyone. Perhaps I can even help you." "Why aren't you answering me? Seriously?" Zhu Yangqing said bitterly. Emo sneered. "If I really was to love one of you too, I would rather love you than to love that Nye Shuang. Really? Brother Yi, you really love me? This is fabulous. Although I don't love you too much, but I can tell my third uncle that you love me. You don't know how much my third uncle admires you. Once he knows you love me, I wonder how he's going to suck up to me. Zhuo Yangqing was suddenly happy and held Yimo's hand, talking non-stop. Yimo twisted his hand and grabbed Zhuo Yangqing's wrist instead, shooting his qi inside her body. There was indeed a frosty qi. It was obviously by Nye Shuang. That woman was bisexual. Zhuo Yangqing screamed after having her wrist grabbed by Yimo. She could hold Yimo's hand, but Yimo couldn't hold hers. She wanted to escape from it and quickly said, Uncle Yi, don't tell me you're serious. Even if you like me, it can't be that fast. I never said I liked you. Hurry up and let me go. Shut up. You really think high of yourself? Yimo reproached. He felt speechless. He used his spirit qi to dispel the frigid qi before releasing her hand. Zhuo Yangqing was still struggling before and was immediately scared to a halt by Yimo's yell. She just realized she was quite afraid of Yimo. She finally felt relieved after Yimo let go of her hand and didn't do anything. But she immediately said surprisingly, how come I feel a lot more comfortable? Brother Yi, grab me more. Then, Zhuo Yangqing reached her out wrist. Yimo rolled his eyes and said, Take back your cat claws. I'm not interested. Stop thinking that you're too perfect. You! Zhuo Yangqing felt wronged. He wanted it before, but now he didn't want it when she gave it to her. However, it was indeed true she was a lot more comfortable after being grabbed by him. Yimo looked at Tingting in his arms. She had fallen asleep on his shoulder. He then turned to Zhuo Yangqing and said, Go back. I have some business at the bar. But one thing I need to remind you. You can take it as a warning. What thing? Uncle Yi. Just say it. Zhuo Yangqing immediately said, Don't change the way you call me around. It annoys me. But that isn't the main thing. The main thing is, don't get close with Nye Shuang, it's bad for you. Whether or not you listen is up to you. Then Yimo turned and left. Zhuo Yangqing was dazed for a long time before frowning. Why did he remind her not to get close with Nye Shuang? Shuang was not an arrogant person. In fact, she was the prettiest girl in the uni and was also empathetic. She couldn't understand why. She wanted to stop Yimo and ask. But she didn't need to. Yimo was already stopped. 2 cops had stopped Yimo's way. Zhuo Yangqing looked at Qing Sun, who was not far, and knew it was his fault. Take out your identity. You were fighting in the streets. We need you to come with us to the police department. The taller police stopped Yimo and said, Of course, Yimo also saw Qing Sun. He sneered and knew they were in the same group, or perhaps even Qing Sun's lackey. If it was when he was studying at Ninghai, he would have no choice but to go with them. But now he just sneered. Piss off. Just when Zhuo Yangqing wanted to help Yimo say something, she heard Yimo tell the police to piss off. She was worried. Why didn't this guy know to change? He didn't know how to stay calm at all. Even if I can get you out later, there's no avoiding going in the retention center. Zhuo Yangqing sighed and took out her phone, preparing to call her third uncle. As soon as Yimo said piss off, the faces of the 2 policemen changed. The shorter one pointed and Tingting and Zhuo Yangqing and said, We suspect you in child trafficking. Now we're taking you to the police department for investigation. If you have any questions, you can appeal later. Zhuo Yangqing heard the words of the 2 police and immediately charged up, yelling, You're bullshitting? Where do you see I'm underage? I'm telling you now, I'm trafficking young pretty boys. Apprehend me too. Then, Zhuo Yangqing raised her not small chests and shafted Yimo's arms, obviously meaning, What are you going to do? Forgetting completely, she just thought to tell Yimo to stay calm. Qing Sun from afar was furious. Not only was he hit, but he also saw the person he liked shaft Yimo's arm. Yimo wasn't surprised Zhuo Yangqing did that. It wasn't the first time she did. The 2 cops were shocked by Zhuo Yangqing's words, but the taller police reacted and immediately said, It could be sex trade. Take them both back. Zhuo Yangqing's face changed and was taking out her phone to call. However, Yimo raised his arm and stopped her. He just took out a small blue book and opened it in front of the taller police and said, I'll count to 3. If you don't piss off, then prepare to eat prison food. The two policemen immediately saw the red stamp, Special Ops Force Flying Snow Head Instructor, China Special Forces Bureau. They were so scared that they sweated immediately. Perhaps they didn't dare to start trouble with the sweeping lady of the Special Forces, much less the head instructor of flying snow. Other people didn't know how strong this position was, but the cops knew all too well. And that stamp had an obvious weak glow to it, meaning it's authentic. This couldn't be faked now. Before Yemo even counted one, the two policemen already quickly said multiple apologies and ran. They didn't even dare to go to Ching Sun. Brother Yi, what did you show them? Why is it so effective? Can you get me one too? Zhuangqing knew she was being dumb as soon as she finished asking. That was obviously an identity document. What document could make the cops scared? Must be powerful military ones. Yemo's mouth spasmed and said, "You can ask your third uncle." Zhuangqing knew that Yemo was playing a joke on her and unhappily said, "Why did you tell me to stay away from Nie Shuangshuang just then?" Yemo sneered. Even if Nie Shuangshuang wanted to drink, was there not one nearby the school? Why did she have to come to this one? Since she did, why did Ching Sun know? Why did he also appear here? This is too coincidental, isn't it? You're saying. Zhuangqing immediately understood. Nie Shuangshuang listened to Ching Sun to trick her over. Was she actually just putting on an act? I'll ask Ching Sun. When Zhuangqing turned around, Ching Sun was nowhere to be seen. I didn't think she was this sort of person. I've judged her wrong. This Ching Sun isn't a good thing either, Zhuangqing said hatefully. Yemo didn't tell her the eeriness about Nie Shuangshuang. That was no good for her. However, he still had to remind her and said, "Don't come in contact with her. It's no good for you." So what if I come in contact with her? I want revenge. Plus, aren't you planning on getting close to her? Otherwise, why did you take her name card? This little fox demon. It was obvious Zhuangqing wouldn't be able to let it go without getting back at Nie Shuangshuang. Moreover, this Nie Shuangshuang also became a fox demon. She forgot that not long ago. She said Nie Shuangshuang was pitiful in front of Yemo. Yemo sneered and said, "Do you feel she's usually very timid and innocent? Would an innocent, shy person always have these name cards with flirty smells?" Then, Yemo took out that pink name card before continuing. "It's up to you whether you believe it. You can also think of it as me bullshitting." Zhuangqing wasn't a stupid girl. Although she couldn't completely analyze things sometimes, it didn't mean she knew nothing. From the series of things that happened today and then reflecting back to what usually happens, Zhuangqing immediately understood that what Yemo said might possibly be true. She suddenly thought of Yemo grabbing her wrist and releasing it. Then the change in her body. Was this related to Nie Shuangshuang? Just when Zhuangqing wanted to Yemo about it, Yemo's face suddenly changed as he rushed into the bar. Yemo saw that Yunbing suddenly rushed towards the man she followed like crazy and was about to throw a bottle on him. But immediately, she was suppressed by the two people beside her and was dragged inside the bar. Yemo went in and kicked those two men away without hesitation and pulled Yunbing over. Yunbing with messy hair saw that the person pulling her was Yemo and couldn't help to run into his arms and weep. Zhuangqing came in and saw Yunbing and then looked at Yemo. She felt this was complicated and just stood behind Yemo saying nothing. Feng Rong stood up and looked coldly at Yemo. There was a youth beside him who sat still and didn't even look at Yemo as though Yemo was someone about to die. The two men struggled a long time before getting up and was about to attack again when the youth sitting still waved his hand. "We're civilized people. Better to let the police deal with these maggots. Tell the police to not let this bastard come out again." Without the youth's reminder, the people from the bar had called the police. They could tell that although Yemo was by himself, he still had the advantage. The four people together on Feng Rong's side was no match for him. Yunbing had calmed down now and got up from Yemo's arms while sobbing. Zhuangqing passed some tissue to Yunbing. "What's the matter?" Yemo asked casually. Yunbing pointed at Feng Rong and hatefully said, "This animal years ago plotted against me, and now he want to help someone harm me for the second time." Yemo frowned. Although Yunbing didn't say exactly what he did, He still understood that this Feng Rong was her original boyfriend. Not only did he not protect her, but he sold her instead. Emo looked at Yun Bing unhappily, thinking that it was lucky that the second time didn't succeed. If it did, it was still her fault. As though seeing Yemo's unhappy eyes, Yun Bing lowered her head thinking even if she didn't hear this today, she wouldn't be harmed by him a second time. She wasn't an idiot. She was fully disappointed with Feng Rong, much less when she couldn't stop thinking about Emo now. What thing could make him unable to be reached for 8 years in America? Why did he happen to leave as soon as it happened to her? The police car sounded and the 2 nearby policemen had came. From the speed they came, it could be seen that the reporter's status wasn't low. Take this person away, he committed a heavy crime. I will call and provide evidence later. The way that the youth ordered made people feel as though the 2 police were his servants. The 2 policemen raised their head and saw Emo. They froze thinking not good. The person they feared seeing the most was this person. Why did these people have to mess with him? Why aren't you moving? The youth saw the 2 policemen just stood still and said unhappily. Yun Bing handed Ting Ting to Yun Bing and walked up in front of the youth. He grabbed his neck and held him up and gave him a few slaps on the face before kicking him besides the 2 men earlier. The youth's mouth was full of blood and he spat out a few teeth. He was paralyzed on the ground, wanting to talk but unable to. You! Feng Rong looked at Emo in terror. He didn't expect Emo to be this ferocious, daring to attack him like that in front of police. What made him unable to understand was why did the police come and just watch him get hit but not do anything. However, Emo didn't teach Feng Rong a lesson and just patted on his shoulder a few times. Remember to not go anywhere tomorrow. Better to eat more today. Piss off. Feng Rong didn't know that he was death-sentenced by Emo since his heart meridian had been sealed by ladder. He thought Emo let him go due to Yun Bing. Thinking about the man on the ground, he yelled cockily. You dare to attack Yi Lian? Hearing Feng Rong's words, Emo was surprised. He looked at the youth on the ground and asked, You're from the Yi family? That's right, you scared? Feng Rong sneered immediately, but before he finished, he found his face was spitting out the same amount of blood and teeth as Yi Ling. He now understood that if Emo wanted to beat him up, he would. Emo originally wanted him to have a calmer life before death, but this Feng Rong pissed him off. Yi Lian saw Emo walk over and wiped the blood from his face using an unclear tone. Bastard, you dare to attack me. However, Emo stood on his face once again and said, I want to hit the Yi family people. You tell me if I dare to hit you? Last time, I went up and smashed the Yi family big gate. I didn't see you. You are probably only a small insect of the Yi family. Yi Lian looked at Emo in terror. He finally understood that this youth was that ancestor of the Yi family, Emo. He didn't dare to be cocky anymore. Even the leader Yi Beirong didn't dare to say anything when Emo smashed his way in, much less him from a branch lineage. He could only shake and hate himself for not recognizing this was Emo. When he saw Emo raise his foot again after breaking the legs of his 2 lackeys, he was so scared he quickly said, Brother Yi, this isn't my fault. Feng Rong, that animal, said Yun Bing was by herself and told me to make a move. I listened him and that's why I planned to. Arg! Before Yi Lian finished, Emo still stepped down. Emo turned to the 2 policemen and said, Did you hear their verdict? Yes, we heard it. The 2 policemen bowed. Oh, in that case, take these scums away. You don't need to notify me. Contributing to social stability is what I should be doing, Emo blandly said. Hearing these words, Zhuo Yangqing couldn't help bursting into laughter. Emo acted as though he didn't hear it as he turned to the 2 policemen and said, I suspect this bar is problematic. Notify your leader. They must investigate this. Hand the result to Flying Eagle Li Hu and tell him to notify me. If you can't find anything, then don't blame me then. Same if you use a few small fries as scapegoats. Emo wouldn't believe this bar wasn't problematic when Nye Shuangshuang chose to drink here. Sorry, I caused trouble for you again, Yun Bing said apologetically. Emo waved his hand and said, It's not a problem if I'm here. If I'm not, then that would be a problem, so. Although Emo didn't finish his words, Yun Bing understood what he meant. She should not be so impulsive in the future. Feng Rong destroyed her life and that made her unable to control herself. However, this was just once. There wouldn't be anything that would make her so emotional again. To her, her past was dead, and there was no point in remembering it. Let's go eat. Yemo saw Yun Bing was unhappy and said casually. Although Zhui Yangqing didn't know what was going on, she could understand part of the situation and quickly said, Brother Yi, you and this sister can come to my house to eat. And it seems she didn't forget about checking up on her grandpa. Yemo agreed. Seeing this, Zhui Yangqing quickly called her third uncle and her small aunt. Immediately, everyone in the Zhua family started moving. The Zhua family had been so hopeful of Yi Mo's coming. Zhui Yushan's coral poison was too easy for Yi Mo now. In less than half an hour it was all gone. The Zhua family was very polite to Yun Bing due to Yi Mo, even more than Yi Mo. From Zhua Yushan's perspective, Yi Mo was an excellent stock. If Yun Bing was his woman, it would be more effective to treat her nice. Just when Yi Mo was prepared to leave, the news reported the matter between O Tanya and O Chan. Yi Mo nodded, thinking this elder Han was really fast. It had only been a day and they were done. These old people probably had the intention already and used him as the leading bird. But despite knowing he was used by them, he would still kill O Tanhu. The O family is done. Zhui Yushan looked at the TV and sighed. He continued, the O family was too cocky. They've harmed a lot of people in recent years, much less what happened 20 years ago. Yun Bing looked at Yi Mo in shock. She didn't expect Yi Mo meant this when he said the O family wouldn't look for trouble with her. Just how much power did he have? Yi Mo smiled to Yun Bing and nodded. Yun Bing immediately felt warm at heart. Even if he wasn't her man, it was still her luck to be able to know someone as magical as him. Thinking that she wouldn't have to live a life of terror, she suddenly felt optimistic. Wu Liang Mountain was called Menglu Mountain before. It had an area of a few thousand acres. The Qing dynasty poet De Jiajing wrote a poem here. Everyone knew that Dai Jiajing was a famous poet during the times of Dao Guang Emperor. People rarely knew that he also had a brother Dai Jihui. Around 1816, they met someone from Dianzong of the hidden sects here and were taken in due to their talent. Dai Jiajin wanted to be a scholar and rejected to stay, but Dai Jihui stayed. They were scared that if they left at the same time, the hidden sect people would kill their family. After Dai Jiajing came out, he participated in the national test. He was 24 that year and was sent to Hunan province as the governor, but still had no news of Dai Jihui. He missed his brother, and so he came to Wu Liang Mountain and wrote the poem. His poem meant that inside the Wu Liang Mountain, the area was actually very large and high up in the clouds. Its vastness was so great that one couldn't see it with bare eyes. Now, Wu Liang Mountain was a national environmental protection site. It hid countless unknown scenery as well as countless unknown places. At this moment, at a place where normal people couldn't reach in the Wu Liang Mountains, there was a large area of houses. The place looked ancient. Outside these houses, there was a curved path reaching to the bottom of the mountain. Looking from the bottom, these houses were like an immortal realm hidden in the clouds. In front of the houses was a big tower with an enormous character of serenity. This was the hidden sect Serenity. There was a distant room, and in it, Luo Susu sat there dazed while thinking about something. She had returned to the hidden sects for a month of two. Originally, she thought it would only take a few days to forget that man, but it had been 2 months now, and she still couldn't calm down to cultivate her serene heart manual. Once she closed her eyes, Yi Mo would appear in front of her. Those scenes that she couldn't hide away showed up again and again. He almost died due to thirst but still gave the water bag to her. He knew it was the desert and how important water was for people. What sort of magical man was he? Even though he was almost eaten by those insects, he still didn't want to leave her behind. Instead, he carried her and continued running. What sort of an emotional man was he? He searched around for water everywhere to save her while his lips were cracked dry. Then, he cut open his own wrist to feed her blood until he went unconscious. However, that was the first time she met him, and as for her, she just gave him some water at most. And the pool he gave her. That was the best birthday present she got in her entire life. This present was given to her in the desert. Who could give such a present in the desert? What sort of a person was he? Luo Susu thought about Yimo's lips, that moment when she kissed him. His lips were very cold but warm at the same time. Now that she thought about, she felt lost in the thought. I will forget about him, I must. Luo Susu cultivated her serene heart manual, but before she could even complete a circle, she spat out another mouthful of blood. This was already the 6th time it happened. Susu, our sex cultivation forbids joy, worry, anger, emotions, hurt. The words of her master echoed in her ears, but she still went against it all. If her master was still here, she could ask her, but she wasn't. She didn't know if he was doing well. Did he finish his things? Luo Susu's thoughts went to Yimo again. What was happening to her? Why did she always think about him? It seemed that, in her memory, she and Yimo knew each other a long time ago. However, no matter how she searched her memory, there were only those in the desert. Perhaps she knew him from her past life. Luo Susu's door suddenly opened and a nun-looking woman walked in. This nun was called Jing Shi, her master's Shurdi. Although she was in her 40s, she looked like a young woman who hasn't even reached her 30s. Not only was her skin smooth, her eyes and brows were clearly defined. Her lips had this sexy rootiness to it. Looking meticulously, she was an oddly beautiful woman. The most noticeable feature about her was her sharp nose. If her eyes and hair wasn't black, she would look Western. Shu. Luo Susu stood up and called. The nun looked at Luo Susu and frowned. Susu, you are no longer suited to cultivating at Serenity. You just went to the mortal world once, and you were enticed by it, losing your Tao heart. But you are from the hidden sect, and you must not be let into the mortal world again. Shu. Luo Susu said worriedly. She knew this Shu didn't like her. She didn't know why, but it should be related to her master. There must be some punishment the way her Shu was talking. The nun shook her head and said, Susu, even if you can't cultivate our way, you don't have to go back to the normal world. Before Luo Susu could feel relieved, the nun continued, the young master of Jiansong is only 30 years of age, but he is tertiary stage of yellow level. His future is boundless. Plus, Jiansong's martial arts are good for you. Our sects have always had good relations, and we're not far from each other. If you marry into Jiansong... No! Luo Susu's face went pale. No matter what, she wouldn't marry someone. As for why, she had this rejection in her heart. This nun's face sunk and was about to talk once again when another voice said, Jing she sure may. If Susu doesn't want it, then don't force her. Although we have fallen, we're not at the stage to rely on marriage to survive. Yes, sure Jie. However, Jing she obviously didn't seem very respectful to her. Luo Susu went up and greeted. Luo Susu greets sect leader. MHM. The nun nodded and said after a while, Susu, you do have a big problem after coming back. Your heart can no longer calm down like before. Then, the nun started to think what to do with Luo Susu. Leader Sherbo, I wish to ask for one more thing. Because I went out this time and some things occurred, if I can't completely resolve these things, it may be very hard for me to calm my heart to cultivate again. So I plead leader to allow me to go out again. Luo Susu had this sudden urge to see Yimo again. She wanted to ask if Yimo had seen her before and had some memory of her before. No. Jing she interrupted. Jing Xian Shijie. Susu yearns for the mortal world. If we let her back in, perhaps something would happen, and it would be our sect that is embarrassed. Luo Susu was shaking with anger due to these words but didn't dare to object. However, Jing Xian nodded and said, Then what do you think should happen? Jing she didn't even look at Luo Susu and just said, In my opinion, it was already against the rules that Luo Susu went out last time. After she came back, she couldn't cultivate. I think we should send her to the cold room for 3 years. Luo Susu was shaken. Cold room for 3 years. That was like a death sentence. With her only yellow-level intermediate stage power, it was death if she went in there. Her master died 3 months after being closed in the cold room for 2 years. Her master was also sent to that cold room due to this Shu. Now, she didn't expect she would be walking the same path due to her. Xian glanced at Jing Shi and sighed. Susu, you might as well go to Diansong. Luo Susu shook her head and said, Leader Sherbo, I will go to the cold room. Humph. Unworthy thing. Jing Shi didn't even say goodbye to Xian and just left. Sigh. Xian looked at Luo Susu and left. Although she knew that Jing Shi wanted to take revenge on Luo Susu's master, but she couldn't say anything. Leader Sherbo, I want to change my name. Luo Susu suddenly called to the leaving Xian. Xian turned around and looked at Luo Susu with guilt. Susu, tell me, I will change it for you in the sect. I can do that at least. She also knew that if Luo Susu went to the cold room, there would be no coming back. However, she didn't dare to stop Jing Shi's decision. She just felt guilty to Luo Susu's master and her. Luo Susu wasn't dumb. Xian was the leader but was succumbed to Jing Shi. If there wasn't something that Jing Shi had a grasp of, she definitely wouldn't believe it. Sherbo, I want to change my name to Luo Ying. I found that I often call myself Luo Ying in my dreams, Luo Susu said. She was worried for her Sherbo. Xian looked once at Luo Susu and nodded. She took out a jade necklace from her sleeves and gave it to Luo Susu and said, Susu, from now on, you are Luo Ying. This necklace was sent over by a friend from the Luozong Magical Artifact Social. This is a real magical artifact. It's yours now. Good luck. I'm going. At night, after Yimo sent Yunbing and Tingting back, he went straight to Han Zixin. However, Yunbing twisted and turned unable to fall asleep. She knew that as soon as the day was bright, she and Tingting would go back to Ninghai. She would no longer have the chance to be with Yimo anymore. Perhaps tonight was the last night she would stay together with Yimo. The more she thought, the more she regretted running away from Yimo's room. However, she felt too hard to summon the courage to go again. She knew if she didn't take the initiative, Yimo wouldn't come for her. Sometimes, she felt she was a bad woman, but she knew that in the depth of her heart, what she was thinking wasn't completely to repay Yimo. It was because she really wanted to be together with Yimo even if it was just for one night. She was afraid Yimo would think she was trying to use him, but she knew that she really didn't think that way. Yunbing had made up her mind. After Yimo comes back to sleep, she would go to his room again. Although it was a bit shameless, she would still do it for Yimo. At around 10 p.m., Yimo still hadn't come back, but Yunbing was almost about to fall asleep. Finally, the door sounded. The sleepy Yunbing immediately sat up in nervousness, but she heard the knocking sound from her own room. Her heart was raised. Was Yimo coming over to her? How could this be? Tingting was still sleeping. Thinking about this, Yunbing wanted to get off the bed and look. But at this moment, the lights were turned on. Yunbing was dumbfounded. The person who came in wasn't Yimo but a girl. She still had a bag in her hands. So she realized it was probably Yiling. Yiling knew Yimo was at Beijing and no longer had the mood to play in America. She came back by herself first but didn't expect to see Yunbing when she opened her room and froze. You are Yiling? Yunbing said. Yiling nodded and asked, You are. I'm Yunbing, Yimo's English teacher. Yunbing quickly explained but felt relieved and disappointed at the same time. She didn't have the courage to go to Yimo's room anymore. Now that Yiling was back, she couldn't even if she wanted to. You are Mrs. Yunbing. I've heard my brother talk about you, Yiling said in surprise. Yimo said Yunbing saved his life before, but now it seemed there was some relationship between them. She immediately saw Tingting and was shocked. Yimo didn't tell her Yunbing had a child and she was so old already. In that case, she was obviously not suitable with her brother. Seeing Yiling look at Tingting, Yunbing quickly explained what happened from Hong Kong till now. My brother went out? Yiling thought Yimo was asleep. As though knowing Yimo would come at night, Han Zixin had prepared tea and snacks. But even so, when Yimo actually came, Han Zixin felt relieved. He didn't have any way if Yimo didn't come because his phone was always off. Yimo saw that other than Elder Han and Han Yen, there was also another man in his 50s. Han Zixin was very polite to Yimo seeing him come in. He quickly stood up. Yemo, this is the military laboratories, Li Xiang. Old Li, this is Yemo I told you about. Han Zixin just introduced the two but didn't say Li Xiang's position. Li Xiang also nodded to Yemo. In his eyes, although Yemo was strong, he was still young. For someone in high status like them, they only needed to be nice and Yemo would be extremely grateful. And it seemed pretty easy to use Yemo this time. Thus, he didn't understand why Han Zixin took Yemo so seriously. In his impression, Yemo was a simple-minded but strong youth. Yemo didn't care seeing that Li Xiang seemed to be a little rude. He couldn't even be bothered to nod. To him, there was no point in getting close with such a person. Their pursuits were different. It was just a deal between him and Han Zixin. Seeing that Yemo couldn't even be bothered to nod, Li Xiang couldn't keep it together. However, he was in a high status for a long time and had some control. Han Zixin frowned, thinking this old Li was good but just underestimated people. Seeing that Han Zixin wanted to ease up the tension, he waved his hand and sat down. Elder Han, don't waste time. Since this is a deal, just tell me what to do. I prefer to be straightforward. Han Zixin had some understanding of Yemo's personality and nodded. In that case, I'll be straightforward. We researched the model you gave Li Hu carefully last time. It's an extremely valuable military secret. We originally thought it was just worth tens of millions, but by the looks of it now, that's only a minor fraction of it. Yemo immediately knew the mission was related to this, but he already gave the thing to Han Zixin. Why did they bring it up? Han Zixin continued. The conclusion we got is that this model is only a part of it. It's only the outer energy core part. The nucleus of the thing isn't there. Now that we know how important this data is, we can't have such precious thing in the hands of others. Although we don't know who invented this data, but it could be said to be a military milestone. Then Han Zixin looked at Yemo. I think you should know we want you to get back the remaining part. Regardless if our country can really create it, it's much better to have this in our hands than in others. You want me to find you this? Yemo frowned. When Dong gave this to him, where would he find it? Han Zixin nodded seriously. Indeed, I think only you can find this. One reason is that you gave it to us, so you should know something about where it came from. The second is that normal people's power wouldn't be able to retrieve such a precious data, so I want you to go with Han Yen and find the remaining data. Li Xiang added timely. It's every citizen's responsibility to serve the country. So this is not only a mission but an honor. Yemo looked coldly at Li Xiang. Shut up. Stop playing your games. Li Xiang's face immediately changed. He didn't understand Yemo, so he took out those big ideas he used to educate young people with. Of course, Han Zixin knew Yemo's personality. Even if Yemo knew his position, he would still be nothing in the eyes of Yemo. Yemo was someone who wouldn't get up early without benefit. It was useless to educate him with those big ideals. If he owed the country, then he would repay the debt himself. Yemo hated empty words. He quickly stopped Li Xiang, who was going to throw a tantrum. Old Li, Yemo is like that, don't be like that. Han Yen sat by the side saying nothing. It was completely irrelevant to her, but she looked coldly at Li Xiang. It seemed she also despised him. Han Zixin's payment of 1 block of green silver sand should be enough. In Yemo's heart, that was worth countless times more than that military model. However, only he knew the worth of the green silver sand. As such, Yemo knew Han Zixin's reward was enough, but Han Zixin didn't. Seeing Yemo not talk, Han Zixin was afraid Yemo would regret and quickly said, "The next batch of material is coming in 3 months. Then I'll let you pick 10 more. Yemo waved his hand and said, I agree to this. I'll try, regardless of whether I succeed or not. I won't return the green silver sand. Yemo was not interested at all in picking 10 more. If he could pick out 5 or 6 things, he would already be happy. There wouldn't be that much good materials for him to pick anyway. Okay, you and Yen Er can start tomorrow. Han Zixin stood up in joy. Then he turned to Han Yen and said, Yen Er, no matter what, safety first. Okay? However, Yemo said, no need. I'll go by myself. It's cumbersome to have an extra person. Humph, Yemo, I admit you're strong, but if you think you can beat me for sure, you're wrong. Otherwise, let's fight first. Han Yen was discomforted by Yimo's words. No need to fight. I'll let you come with me. Looking at the way Han Yen jumped into fighting stance, he knew he underestimated her body technique at least. No matter how strong she was, she wouldn't be cumbersome with that movement technique and might even give him some help. Of course, another plan was that since she was from the hidden sex, perhaps he could try to get something out of her mouth. That was the most important. Han Yen intentionally showed some ability and saw that Yimo indeed seemed to be impressed as he allowed her to go. She raised her head high in self-satisfaction. Ever since Yimo killed Otan Hu, she felt she was no match for him. But even though she felt she was no match for him, she felt she lost to no one in movement technique, even Yimo. Buy the ticket to Xian Mountain and wait for me at the airport tomorrow morning. Yimo dropped these words and left quickly. He needed to find Wendong before he could find the thing. Only Wendong knew where it came from. Plus, he wanted to go to Flowing Snake. He needed to buy some things that could prevent Nie Shuangshuang to not attack his relatives. He's a conceited person, Han Yen suddenly said. Humph. I think he's an arrogant freak, not respecting his elders. Li Xiang sneered. Han Zixin waved his hand and said, Old Li, you need to change your temper. Do you know why the Song family didn't dare to touch him? Your Li family is also a big family of Beijing, so you would know after you ask Marshal Li. Sometimes you can't just be doing academics. Li Xiang looked at Han Zixin in shock. He thought Han Zixin would be on his side. But Han Zixin was helping Yimo. Marshal Li was his big brother and also the most authoritative person in the Li family. He didn't expect Han Zixin to tell him to ask his big brother. Did his big brother look at Yimo differently? Why would someone so young and abandoned by the Yi family be worth noting? Yimo bought a lot of daily products. Although he was stage 3 Qi gathering, he was still fearful of his experience in the desert. He didn't believe he was completely safe just because he was stage 3. There might be earth-level or even sky-level masters. Even if he was surrounded by those bugs in the desert, he would die. After he bought enough things, he called Nie Shuangshuang. Nie Shuangshuang's shy voice sounded. It was very sweet and made people feel comfortable and even render this impulsive feeling. When Yimo came to Hua University, Nie Shuangshuang stood at the door looking very nervous. She wore a plain green dress and her hair was wet. A few strands came down her soft-skinned face, making her seem more nimble and innocent. Accompanied with her high soaring chest, almost all the students at the door would secretly look at her. Just when Yimo walked in front of her, he smelt this faint aroma. It seemed to be natural coming from the body. Seeing Yimo come over, Nie Shuangshuang rubbed her sleeves nervously and seemed to say something, but Yimo knew she said nothing. Seeing Yimo just stand in front of her and not say anything for a long time, Nie Shuangshuang raised her head and used those innocent-looking eyes and said, Brother Yi, you wanted me. Then, she lowered her head and held onto the edge of her skirt tightly. Yimo sighed. This woman could go get a golden Oscars at Hollywood. He thought she would be perfect to lure those black bulky men, so why stay at a place like Hua University? Moreover, she seemed to know how to utilize men's weakness. Even though Yimo knew there was something wrong with her, he still couldn't prevent himself from having strange thoughts towards her. As though not hearing Yimo's reply, she secretly looked at Yimo while blushing and looked down. Yimo said, Indeed, I wanted to look for you. Do you have time? Tomorrow's the weekend. Nie Shuangshuang just said half a sentence. Yimo sneered. She was acting innocent too much. Tomorrow is the weekend, so that meant she could go out with him for the entire night. What sort of girl would say that to someone she only met for the second time? She didn't say the second half of the sentence, but any man could imagine it. It seemed to be more enticing left unsaid. Let's go, you wanted to drink with Zhuo Yangqing yesterday but wasn't able to. How about I take you out for a drink? Yimo said straightforwardly. He felt that frosty feeling on Nie Shuangshuang was weaker today. He didn't want to know who Nie Shuangshuang was. But Yiling still had to stay a month or two at Hua University. He didn't want her to be in danger, so he had to know who Nie Shuangshuang was, and what that bleak feeling from her was. If she was a threat to Yiling, he didn't mind doing something good for society. Nie Shuangshuang looked at Yimo in shock, due to his straightforwardness but didn't reject. She hesitantly agreed as though it was hard for her to reject. Drunk Eye Bar is close to the uni, but they didn't sit at the bar and chose a distant corner and sat. What do you want to drink? Emo asked casually. If possible, he didn't want to get on bad terms with her. Although he wasn't afraid of her, he didn't want enemies everywhere. So what if Nye Shuangshuang was messing around with other people every day? The reason he asked her out today was to tell her to back off from his sister. Nye Shuangshuang didn't say what she wanted to drink, but instead asked, Brother Yi, did you ask me out to drink? I feel as though you don't like me very much. But why did you ask me out? Under the dim light, she seemed more bold and could at least look at Emo when she talked. Since you can tell I don't like you very much, why did you come out with me? Emo asked with derision. She didn't seem to notice it and said feebly, Because the first time I saw you, I feel this intimacy from you So you like me? Then Emo told the waiter to serve to beer. He wasn't here to drink today. Nye Shuangshuang suddenly raised her head and said, Yes, Brother Yi. Although it's not to the degree of liking you, but I have a great impression of you. It's the first time I had this feeling coming here. So today, when you said you wanted to drink, I came with you without hesitation. But why are you talking to me with this tone? I don't even know what your name is. Emo sneered. Good impression, if you're still a virgin. Perhaps I would have some good impression to you. Now, don't talk about good impression in front of me. Originally, Emo wanted to have a talk with her, but seeing how she kept this act up, he suddenly felt very annoyed. You! Nye Shuangshuang suddenly stood up. Her pretty face was shaking under the light. She pointed her hand at Emo and wanted to say something, but she put it back down. After a while, she continued, You called me out just to say this to me? Do you have no manners around girls? I saw you wrong. Then, Nye Shuangshuang turned to leave as though she was really angered by Emo's words. However, Emo sat without moving. He knew that if this woman wanted men's yang essence, she wouldn't let him go because he cultivated pure yang qi. This was probably the good impression in her eyes. However, Emo saw Nye Shuangshuang walk to the door and still had no intentions of turning back. He frowned but didn't believe he saw her wrong. He still felt the sense of the opposite sex from her yesterday. Plus, this woman had this eerie cold feeling. Emo knew she wasn't a normal person. Such a hot chick. Come in and have a drink with me. Two men who just walked into the bar saw Nye Shuangshuang. One of their eyes brightened up immediately and he grabbed towards her. Nye Shuangshuang screamed but couldn't break free. Let's go to a private room. It's much better than outside. Then the grabbed Nye Shuangshuang walked inside. Many people saw it and even the bar people, but no one said a thing. They continued to do what they were doing. Nye Shuangshuang looked helplessly towards Emo. It was obvious she wanted Emo to help her. She saw how strong Emo was yesterday. If he did something, even if he couldn't beat these two, she could break free. Emo, however, was still sipping the beer that was just brought to him as though he didn't see it at all. However, Emo's spirit sense scanned that the eyes Nye Shuangshuang showed had disappointment, deep disappointment rather than loss in hope. Soon, Nye Shuangshuang was dragged into a private room by those two scum. The door was then slammed shut. You're also coming to have fun at the bar, what are you scared of? I'll make you very comfortable later. There's plenty of money, don't worry. I'm not someone who just leaves after eating. The man released Nye Shuangshuang's hands after closing the door. Where did you see me being scared? Nye Shuangshuang's face was suddenly very bleak. The two men froze when they saw Nye Shuangshuang at the door. Her face seemed so helpless. With her innocent look, they felt they needed to comfort her first after pulling her in. However, this girl changed her face too quick. The helplessness and innocence turned to bleakness now. The two men felt a frosty feeling from their bones. If this wasn't at a bar and the room lights were still on, they would have thought they met a fox demon deep in the mountains. Who are you? The other man yelled. The girl still had the same face, but it caused them to feel cold and scared. Nye Shuangshuang sneered. Who am I? Didn't you drag me in? Now that you dragged me in, why aren't you doing anything but asking who I am? Nye Shuangshuang's cold tone made the two men shiver. Suddenly, they lost all their lust. They had no lust for such a beautiful Xianxia. They just wanted to get out quick. They couldn't understand how a woman changed so much. We're joking. Let's go. Xiao, let's get out. The man who grabbed Xianxia suddenly said. He didn't want to face Xianxia. He felt his skin was tingling. Go out? Why go out? You pulled me in. Don't you want to do something? Xianxia suddenly said without any tone. Don't want to. The man called Xiao felt the frigidness in the room and wanted to pull the door open. They didn't want to face Xianxia. Xianxia sneered. Do you think you can still go? What are you saying? The man who held the handle of the door just asked that and felt this long needle pierce the top of his head. The other man just saw a silver light flashed and his pal was on the ground. He wanted to scream, but that silver light also pierced his head. You! The man could only say this word before also falling to the ground. Xianxia dumped these two on the couch. From her easy attitude, it seemed as though these people weren't 70 kilograms but a few kgs. Xianxia looked at the two she killed and was lost for a moment. However, her eyes became cold again. She suddenly pulled the zip on her skirt as though she was taking it off. Clap, clap, clap. Xianxia turned around and saw Mo clapping behind her. She didn't even know when Mo came in. Fascinating, fascinating. I saw these people fall asleep not long after they came in. I see you taking off your clothes too. Do you want to sleep a while too? Mo didn't sound displeased at all. Xianxia's eyes seemed anxious as she quickly pulled the zip on her skirt back and stared at Mo a while before asking, When did you come in? Mo sneered. This isn't what you should ask. It has nothing to do with you. I just didn't want to see an ugly scene, so I came in earlier. Xianxia bit her lips until it almost bled. Her eyes seemed red, but she still didn't say anything. What you want to do has nothing to do with me, but I'm afraid after you're done, I will lose my appetite to talk with you. So I want to say my words first. As for what you do after I leave, it has nothing to do with me, Mo said coldly. Xianxia raised her head and looked at Mo, saying word by word, Do you believe that I can kill you right now with a raise of my hand? Mo suddenly sat down and pulled out a beer bottle from his storage ring, opened it and drank a mouth before saying, I don't believe it. Xianxia seemed to have forgotten what she just said and just stared at Mo. He wore very little, just a shirt and long pants. Where did he get this bottle from? If it was in his pocket, it would be bulging. I'm waiting for you to kill me. If you're gonna do it, then hurry up. My patience is limited. Mo just saw Xianxia kill with needles, but he didn't know where she hid the needles. If she attacked, he would take her needles and have a look. He wasn't so perverted to scan her entire body with his spirit sense. But I don't want to kill you, I really don't. Then, the bleak look on her face retreated. She paused for a moment before continuing. You knew I could deal with them, so you didn't help me, right? Mo shook his head. Even if I didn't know if you could deal with them, I wouldn't do anything. Who knows if you wanted it anyways because you're this sort of person. Xianxia suddenly started to shake as her face grew pale again. Her hands even moved a few times but eventually stopped. Speak, what do you want? Xianxia's tone was no longer sweet but low and bleak. Mo said coldly, I know your origin isn't ordinary, and I don't know what you're doing at Hua University. However, there's one thing I need to persuade you. You can think of it as a warning. Yiling is my sister, you better not touch half a strand of her hair. Otherwise, no matter who you are, I won't let you go. Yiling is your sister? Xianxia studied Mo again and seemed to be shocked. Xianxia was just shocked for a short time and recovered quickly. She said, I've been at Hua Uni for a few years. Who did you see me touch? Regardless of whether or not you're Yiling's brother, I wouldn't touch her. Mo said plainly, Not necessarily, you and Zhuo Yangqing are such good friends, but you could harm her much less other people. So, I don't really believe your words. When did I harm Zhuo Yangqing? You're wrong. Indeed, you saw me kill these people today, but don't think everything you see is reality. I don't want to explain to you. I can make an oath but not because I'm scared of you, but because... Xianxia's eyes went red again. Emo looked coldly at her. If she didn't make a deadly oath, then she could expect not to walk out of this room today. I, Nye Shuang, swear that if I have any bad intentions towards Yiling, I would be struck by lightning and never have the chance to enter reincarnation. Nye Shuang spoke and even shed tears. Emo wouldn't care about her tears, but he was quite satisfied with her oath. No matter who Nye Shuang was, this oath was quite serious. It was believable when a cultivator made such oath. Seeing Nye Shuang make the oath, Emo stood up. He didn't care about what Nye Shuang did with the two dead people. However, Nye Shuang walked to the door first and turned and said, "Whether you believe it or not, I can kill you easily, but I didn't. And, I want to tell you, I'm still a virgin." Then, Nye Shuang turned and left. After walking out a long way, Emo's voice sounded at her ear. "Whether you believe it or not, the moment you attacked, you would have died. As for whether or not you're a virgin, it has nothing to do with me." Nye Shuang suddenly turned around. She found that she was outside of the bar, but Emo was nowhere to be seen. She was astonished. Was that sound just an illusion? Emo looked at the two dead men and walked out. He didn't deal with the body. It didn't concern him if he was investigated for it. When Emo came back, he found out that Yiling had returned and was talking with Yunbing. It seemed they had been chatting for a long time. "Brother, you're finally back. Why did you come back at 2? Yiling was obviously unhappy he came back so late. Emo smiled and said, "You came from so far? Aren't you going to sleep? I'm leaving Beijing tomorrow." "You're going tomorrow? Are you going back to Luotsong?" Yunbing was worried. "No, I'm doing some business." Emo couldn't say what he was doing. "Brother, can you turn your phone on? I can never reach your phone." Yiling still wanted to catch up with Emo, but he was leaving tomorrow. Emo didn't care about his phone and instead said to Yiling seriously, "Yiling, don't get close to Nye Shuang from your school. Do you understand?" "Why?" "Brother, she's the prettiest in the school and likes to keep a low profile. We rarely talk. Do you know her?" Yiling asked in surprise. Emo felt relieved and said, "I don't know her, but trust my words. After you graduate, if I'm still not done, you can go Luotsong. Brother, after Zifeng comes back, you should talk to him. In fact, I don't agree to him staying at the Yi family, but he said it was very hard for Grandpa too. He wanted to help Grandpa, and he said the main reason Grandpa got him back was due to you." Although Yiling didn't want to stay at Beijing, she was worried about Yi Zifeng staying here himself. Although her big and fourth uncle was sent away from Beijing, who knew if the other members of the Yi family would do something to Yi Zifeng? Emo nodded. Yi Zifeng saw things more clearly than Yiling, but it was impossible for him to try to persuade Yi Zifeng. Everyone had their own life. Seeing Emo look down and not talk, Yiling suddenly thought of one thing and quickly said, "Brother, Zifeng told me to give this to you. He said it was related to your mom." When Emo came to the airport, Han Yen was already there waiting for him. By the looks of it, she had been there for a while. Han Yen carried a bag. She looked at Emo in shock, who only carried a small bag, thinking that this bag wasn't even enough for some clothes, much less equipment. The news she got was that the place they were going was quite far. She didn't know that if Emo wasn't trying to hide his ring, he wouldn't even bother carrying a bag. Emo boarded in no time and sat with Han Yen. Although Han Yen didn't use any makeup, she had this faint aroma on her that was quite pleasant. Although she wasn't extremely pretty, her temperament was quite good. Seeing Emo didn't even talk to her after getting on the plane but just played with the jade bracelet, she was a little annoyed and asked, "My news is to go to Huzhong province. Why are you going to Xian Mountain?" "I need to do some private business," Emo said, and then sunk into silence again. Seeing Emo not interested in talking to her, Han Yen frowned but stopped talking. Emo was thinking about what Yiling said to him last night. "The bracelet was let from Dad, saying your mum left it for you." The bracelet was very old. Emo studied it with his spirit sense and didn't find anything out of the ordinary. It was just a normal bracelet. Sighing, he put the bracelet on his hand. Yunbing, who was planning on going back to Ninghai, decided to go back a week later due to Yiling. Although he didn't know why she was staying for an extra few days, he felt she treated him a little different. Do you know the organization North Sand? Seeing Emo finally stop playing with the bracelet, Han Yen asked quietly. Emo dazed and replied, I only heard about it, why? Seeing Emo finally listen to her, Han Yen breathed and said, You should know that Feng Tian you saved from the desert last time, right? She's from North Sand, and she said that data came from the North Sand. As for how it came out, she didn't say, but it's definitely related to North Sand. Emo was not surprised she was from North Sand. Otherwise, she wouldn't know Wendong. He was looking for Wendong now, but if he could find Feng Tian, then she should know a little about North Sand. Thinking about this, Emo asked, Do you know where Feng Tian is now? Han Yen shook her head and said, I don't know. This was the info she gave Li Hu last time. But my grandpa didn't expect the data to be so precious at the time, so they didn't take it this seriously. And it's said that North Sand is the biggest independent organization in the world. Members are from all over the world, and they have first-grade scientists and military equipment. Their purpose is to establish a democratic country more powerful than America. However, up until now, their means are very despicable. Emo knew Wendong was from North Sand, but he didn't know what sort of organization this was. Han Yen sneered and said, Dreams are good, but the members are too mixed up. Before the country was set up, many people wanted to get rich through the data. The data you got was sent out from someone inside. So North Sand was such a big organization to the degree of creating a country. Although Emo wasn't familiar with politics, he knew that it wasn't so easy. The resource-abundant places were already owned. Do you know the exact situation of North Sand? Emo thought that since this came from North Sand, it would help if he got to know the organization more. Han Yen shook her head. I never care about these things. Grandpa only told me after I came out. Which hidden sect are you from? How do you enter the hidden sect? Emo took a sudden turn and changed the topic. However, this time, Han Yen just shut her eyes and didn't say anything. Emo didn't continue asking her. It seemed it was quite hard knowing about the hidden sects from her. After leaving the airport, Emo called a taxi to the Xianxia Valley. Han Yen didn't know why Emo went there, but before she came out, her grandpa told her that Emo wasn't a simple person and he acquired the data in the first place, so do as he says. So when Emo arranged the route, although Han Yen was curious why Emo didn't start with North Sand, she didn't ask him about it. The taxi stopped at the mountain waste and Emo told the taxi to leave before taking Han Yen to a street with food and hotel. Although he didn't go up with Wendong last time, it wasn't far from the parking lot. Emo also seemed to see Wendong walk into this hotel last time from a distance. He didn't know which one Wendong went to, but this was the only clue he had. If he couldn't find Wendong here, then he had no better idea. Perhaps they could only look for Feng Tian, but according to Han Yen, it was quite hard to find her now. Why did you come here? Han Yen knew that North Sand definitely wouldn't have a base at Xianxia Valley. I have a friend who knows some things. She gave the data to me, so I came here for a look. Han Yen originally thought Emo must knew that a certain friend lived here, but after following Emo and asking a few places, she knew that Emo didn't know at all. She was quite speechless. Although it wasn't a popular tourist place, there were at least tens or even 100 hotels here. How long was this going to take? Luckily, Han Yan's worry didn't turn into reality. When Emo entered a hotel with only an old couple and asked about Wendong, the owner didn't show confusion and studied Emo carefully. Emo knew he came to the right place. You're looking for Dong Dong? The male owner was an old man in his 60s. His voice was slow, but he obviously knew Wendong. Emo quickly said, Yes, uncle. I'm Sister Don's friend, Emo. In order to show that he was close to Wendong, he even called her sister. Emo also felt speechless thinking about it. You are Emo? Oh wait. The old man suddenly went in the room and took out a letter to Emo. Last time, Dong Dong asked someone to bring this to you if you came in 3 months. If you didn't come, she told me to burn it. Emo took the letter in surprise, thinking if it wasn't due to Han Zixin's business, he definitely wouldn't come. Even if he came, how could Wendong know he could find this place and even leave this letter for him? Emo opened the letter and was dazed once again. There was just one word: run. What did this mean? Han Yen also saw this and looked at Yemo with curiosity. The owner couple saw Yemo look at the letter in shock but walked into the backyard. This big run word was written from clear to unclear. The last bit seemed to disappear. Yemo frowned and suddenly understood. Wendong meant for him to run away as far as possible and even hide his name. Not good. Something happened to Wendong. That was Yemo's first thought. Something must have happened to Wendong due to that data, and those people were interrogating her where it went. Only Wendong knew she gave it to him. She didn't tell about him but instead told him to leave. It could be seen that although they met each other occasionally, she was a very trustworthy person. Han Yen saw Yemo's face change and wanted to ask what was going on. Suddenly, Yemo's face was bleak as he looked at the door of the inn. I knew you would come, as expected, haha. Wendong wouldn't say no matter what, but is that any use? A cocky voice sounded. Han Yen suddenly found Yemo had charged out. When Yemo came back, he carried a lady with him. This lady had shriveled hair and messy clothes. There was wounds all over her body and her face was pale. The moment he snatched Wendong from the car at the door of the inn, he knew she wasn't going to make it. Her heart was shattered and she didn't have a breath anymore. He could treat her heart with his chi, but her life force was dissipated. Yemo couldn't save her unless there was a spiritual herb that could recover her life force. Although Yemo had some pills on him, it was a far cry from a spirit herb that recovered life force. Yemo inserted his chi into Wendong, wanting to wake her up, but there was nothing after a while. As though scared by Yemo's ghostly figure, everyone took out their guns on the car. The leading person was a strangely beautiful young married woman. Wendong. Yemo suddenly felt guilty. Although Wendong's death was not due to him, she was tortured like this probably because she didn't want to reveal where the data was. Wendong slowly opened her eyes with the forceful treatment of Yemo's strong chi. When she saw Yemo, she was surprised and quickly said in a voice that even Yemo could barely hear, Yemo, sorry? I involved you in this. North Sand is looking for the model. Quickly go. I didn't say. It was just these few words that used up all of her power and life force. Her head fell in Yemo's arms as she slowly closed her eyes. Yemo suddenly felt a fit of emptiness. Wendong didn't die due to him, but he couldn't bear this sadness. Funny how he still wanted to find Wendong to get the rest of the data but didn't consider the complications for Wendong at all. Although Wendong was a woman, she was straightforward, generous, and very tenacious. Although she didn't tell Yemo what she did with the money, he knew that she definitely didn't use it herself. Yemo raised his head and looked coldly at the four men pointing guns at him before looking down at Wendong and saying, Sister Dong, don't worry, just go. I swear that in my life, I will pull North Sand from its roots and burn that data in front of your grave. Yemo, you. Han Yen heard Yemo's words and was shocked. Regardless of whether he eradicated North Sand, the country needed that data. If Yemo casually burnt it in front of someone's grave, what would her grandpa say? Yemo's eyes were slightly red as he glanced coldly at Han Yen. Shut up. Han Yen was about to rage being told off by Yemo for no reason, but she looked at the guns pointed at them and resisted the urge. Yemo turned, looked at the four men pointing guns at them, and coldly said, You are the bastards of North Sand? Indeed, we are from North Sand. You are the person who took our data? It was the young lady who talked. Her eyes were cold, but it gave off a mature young woman sense. You hit Sister Dong? Yemo's tone was frosty. That's right. I sent the order, but don't worry. Perhaps you may enjoy that treatment very soon. The young woman's tone was colder than Yemo. Then, she continued, If you give it over, perhaps you may enjoy a very beautiful service instead. We North Sand is established on the ideal on an equal environment. If you still have some morality in you, hand it over. Yemo didn't even bother replying this time. He just waved his hand in mid-air a few times, and a few frosty winds swept over. The two men and that woman's wrists were sliced off. The eerie thing was that not much blood spilled out. But still, a man managed to do this and the wind blade that sliced on the car instead created a metallic screeching sound. The Range Rover had a deep mark appearing on its door. Everyone was shocked at that moment. What was this? He sliced people's wrist off in midair? No one saw anything, blood didn't even spill out. Han Yan's brain also froze. She tried to overestimate Yi Mo's capabilities. But now, she knew that Yi Mo was far powerful than she thought. She even forgot about Yi Mo yelling at her. With Yi Mo's power, if he fought with her and he suddenly used that, she didn't even dare to think. The man who dodged the wind blade quickly recovered from his terror. Could be seen he was the strongest of the four. In just less than a second, he pulled the trigger on Yi Mo. The moment he did, he finally felt relieved. This person was too strong. If he didn't react fast, perhaps he would be like his three other partners. The instant the gun sounded, he felt a figure dash across in front of him, and after which the hand holding the gun felt cold. He subconsciously looked at his hands and they were all sliced off. Still, not much blood came out. Then, Yi Mo's words came out. I want to slice off your hands? You think you can run? He turned around and saw Yi Mo carrying Wendong and stared at him coldly from not far. Everyone who had their hands cut off all looked at Yi Mo as though they were dumb. How was someone so horrifyingly strong? What did he just use? Get on the car? Yi Mo looked coldly at the North Sand members and said. A short but fierce man suddenly yelled in anger. Why should I listen to you? I'm not going on the car. What can you do? I won't frown at all if you're going to kill me. Yi Mo didn't even look at the man and just threw a fireball. The short man yelled for a brief moment and made no noise. He was consumed by the fireball and kept rolling on the ground. His mouth shape showed he was yelling, but there was no noise. There was terror and begging for mercy in his eyes. But Yi Mo's eyes were cold and had no intention of letting him go. Han Yan saw that Yi Mo actually shot out a fireball and suddenly shivered. She had tried to overestimate him again and again, but didn't expect to have underestimated him for the second time. He could send out fireballs casually? This was something in the legends. No wonder he killed Otanhu. With his power, even a few Otanhu would be no match for him. Han Yan suddenly thought of Yi Mo's words that he was going to burn the data. She thought those were just angry words before. But now, she had realized those were very real. The remaining three looked at Yi Mo in terror. They got in the back seats of the car without Yi Mo saying anything else. Then, Yi Mo sealed their movement before coldly saying, What you did to Sister Dong, I will make you pay slowly. Han Yan hesitated a long time before saying, Yi Mo, if you can give me that data, perhaps I can save her. What? You can save Wendong? Do you know her situation? Although I can recover her damaged meridians and internal injuries, but her life force is dissipated. Do you know what it is? Perhaps you just thought the heart stopped beating. Yi Mo didn't believe that there was anyone else who could recover life force other than him. Han Yan shook her head and said, I don't know what is life force, but my master said 1,000-year lotus seed heart can save someone who died not long ago. This time, Yi Mo looked at Han Yan in surprise. After a little while, he said, You actually know about 1,000-year lotus seed heart. It seems you understand quite a lot. Didn't your master teach you that it can only save someone who died within 1 incense time? If you can find one in half an incense time, then I owe you one. Han Yan shook her head and said, No need for that long. I can take it out now. Then she took out a jade bottle and gave it to Yi Mo. Yi Mo looked at it. It was indeed 1,000-year lotus seed heart. There was actually such a thing on Earth. Yi Mo almost forgot about saving Wendong. But he quickly came to his senses and carried Wendong into a room in the hotel. He told Han Yan to keep watch over those North Sand people. However, that old couple was actually not inside. If the seed heart arrived in his hands earlier, he could make an entire bottle of medical pills with it. But now, he could only turn it into a serum and save Wendong. It was just him who could do it though. If it were someone else, they wouldn't be able to save Wendong even if they had the 1,000-year lotus seed heart. Yi Mo had a lot of recovery pills inside his ring. With the seed heart now, Wendong's heart soon started to beat again slowly. An hour later, Yi Mo recovered some of Wendong's damaged meridians and internal injuries. Her breathing had stabilized, and Yi Mo knew she was fine before finally releasing a gasp of relief. You really saved her? Han Yen obviously didn't know how precious the lotus seed heart was. She knew it was precious but only heard of it. In the depths of the mountains, she found it unintentionally. Her master complimented her for having good fortune, but even her master didn't know how to use it and just heard it could be used to save people. However, Yemo actually used this to reanimate Wendong. Yemo nodded and said, "Yes, Sister Dong is fine now. I will definitely do what I promised to do. But I still want to ask you a question. Where did you get this from?" After asking, Yemo grew anxious. 1,000-year lotus seed heart usually appeared as 36 together. Since Han Yen could get one, where was the other 35? This thing was not only able to reanimate the dead but had huge uses for cultivation. If there was news of it, he would dump everything aside and search for that first. Han Yen looked at Emo and seemed to know what Emo was thinking, but she still said, "A few years ago, my master took me to gather herbs and I found it around there. I was at a cliff and there were two birds fighting. The seed came out from one of the birds' beak. Later, I felt it smelt good, and so I took it and showed it to my master. My master told me it was the 1,000-year lotus seed heart, but master said although it was precious, people rarely knew how to use it. I didn't expect you to know how." Emo looked at Han Yan's expression and knew she wouldn't say where it was. However, Emo wouldn't give up now. He thought and asked, "Can you draw out the environment where you found the seed?" She hesitated a bit but still took out a pen and paper and drew the surrounding. She drew a cliff. The top was very broad, and there were some chrysanthemum at the cliffside. Emo took the drawing and observed it. He immediately knew this map was about the same as what Emo Kong gave him. It should be the same place. Emo Kong said that the place had precious herbs, and it seemed to be true. Emo took the map and was excited. If he found this place, wouldn't he be able to find a lot of precious herbs immediately? Perhaps he could use that to break through to stage 4. Emo knew that without outside world factor, he would never be able to reach stage 4 just by cultivating himself. There were 9 stages in Qi gathering. If he reached stage 4, that would be intermediate stage Qi gathering. If he could make his flying sword, he would be able to fly on it. Emo was excited just thinking about it. What sort of notion was flying on sword in a place like Earth? Emo, can I ask you a question? Han Yen hesitated for a long time but still couldn't resist her curiosity. Emo nodded. Ask. Although Han Yen didn't say where, she obviously didn't draw random things. And he guessed it was the same place Emo Kong drew, but he didn't know where exactly it was. However, it was rare to see chrysanthemum growing in a cliff. What projectile was that you used to slice off their arms? And what was that fireball? Han Yen thought if she had this projectile, her battle power would increase by many folds. Emo smiled and said, "If I say once you cultivate inner Qi to a certain degree, you can form those fireball and invisible projectile, would you believe me?" Han Yen made the look that I'd be an idiot to believe you. Then, she said, "It's okay if you don't want to say. I've seen too many masters, but none could condense their Qi into a fireball." Emo didn't fuss with this question and gave Wendong to Han Yen. "Let's leave here now, after I ask some questions, then decide what to do." An hour later, Emo drove the car to a distant place and pulled the 3 out. Other than the beautiful woman who still seemed calm, the other 2 men were already horrified. This woman seemed to be the head. He casually beat the 2 men unconscious and looked at the woman and said, "You know I will ask one by one. If you say any lies, you should have seen what I can do." The lady bit her lips and said after a while, "If you let me go, I can agree to any request you have, much less a few questions." Then, there were some rudiness on her face. Emo sighed. This woman was an acting genius. He just cut off one of her hands, but now she was sexually luring him. "You don't have the right to argue with me if you don't want to say, then don't. I will ask someone else." Emo didn't have the slightest good impression to this woman. He was prepared to kill her as soon as he was done. Hearing Emo's words, this woman unexpectedly didn't make more requests and just said, "You should know we're from North Sand. And so is Wendong. Her pal stole important data from North Sand and ran. We're just responsible to bring her back." "How did you know to ambush us at Xianxia Valley?" Emo couldn't understand this. Without Han Zixin, he wouldn't even go there. How would people from North Sand know? The young lady didn't hesitate to say, North Sand has 6 major bases across the globe. We're from the Asian base. It was an order from the base for us to wait at Xianxia Valley. I heard it was because we got a new advisor. It should be his idea. New advisor? How did he know? Emo asked curiously. The lady said once again, he's called Dongfang Shi. When we found that when Dong was related to that inn in Xiangshan Valley, he told us to not startle anyone. We just needed to hide outside the inn. He said that no matter if the person who got the data knew when Dong well or not, they would come back for more after a while. Then we could capture the person. Dongfang Shi, Emo repeated. He felt this name was very familiar. Seeing Emo talk about Dongfang Shi, the lady quickly said, it's said that many things were planned by him ever since he came to the Asian base. Then the lady secretly looked at Emo. Seeing that he was in deep thought, seemingly interested in this Dongfang Shi, she said, I've seen this Dongfang Shi once before. He is lustful. But it's said that his main purpose coming here was for North Sand to help him get revenge. His enemy is Emo. Speaking till now, Emo had understood who this Dongfang Shi was. He was the original advisor of Nanqing. If he didn't attack to their base, or if Ning Qingxue was taken away, Dongfang Shi's plans would have succeeded. Emo sneered. He didn't go find him, but he wanted revenge. However, this guy was indeed big trouble. Life wasn't safe one day with him. He was different from those big families. Those big families had concerns, but he didn't. Emo casually knocked the lady out and asked the other two. The news were about the same. Don't kill these 3. I just called my grandpa. My grandpa said to bring them back to Beijing. Just when Emo wanted to kill the 3, Han Yen spoke. Okay. But there's one thing I need to talk to you about. As for your data, I will find it. You don't need to come with me now. You just need to bring these 3 back. And please take care of Wendong. When she is well, she will leave herself. Emo wanted to find the 1,000-year lotus seed heart place and then go North Sand. To him, that was much more important. Nothing was more important than his cultivation. If it was before they met North Sand, Han Yen would jeer. But now, she understood that Emo was right, that she was cumbersome following him. Emo's power far exceeded hers. Even with her pride, her movement technique might be far inferior than Emo's. She didn't even see how Emo got Wendong from the car an hour earlier. As for how Emo knew 4 North Sand people came, she didn't understand either. Seeing Han Yan's silence, Emo said again, Don't worry, I will return your 1,000 lotus seed heart. After hesitating for a while, Han Yen finally agreed to Emo's words but requested that Emo called them as soon as he had news of the data. Luotsong. Ning Qingxue didn't expect to get Su Jingwen's call. Her first reaction was that was Su Jingwen going to ask her for those 3 beads? She didn't know why, but she was very scared that Su Jingwen would ask her about these 3 beads. If she really wanted them, she could only give it back. Qingxue, are you with Emo right now? I want to talk to him for a bit. Su Jingwen's voice sounded careful, as though scared that Ning Qingxue would misunderstand something. Ning Qingxue felt relieved, thinking that Su Jingwen probably didn't know her relationship with Emo. But she didn't want to explain and just said, I'm not with Emo. Su Jingwen didn't know, felt strange, but quickly said, Isn't Emo at Luotsong too? Did you not see him? Emo is at Luotsong? Ning Qingxue repeated, but thought, when did Emo come to Luotsong? Brother Yi is at Luotsong? That's impossible. This time it was Qi Wanqing speaking. She just walked into the room and heard what Ning Qingxue said. What Su Jingwen said later, Ning Qingxue didn't know. She hung up the call in disappointment. She also thought that Emo couldn't possibly come to Luotsong, and Su Jingwen probably misunderstood their relationship and thought she was with Emo. That was probably why she thought Emo was at Luotsong. However, what did Su Jingwen want Emo for? Ning Qingxue thought about last time at Su Jingwen's birthday and how Emo danced with her. She suddenly felt annoyed but looked at Qi Wanqing after a good while. Wanqing, I think I should go back. Qi Wanqing nodded and said, my dad wants me to go study at England. I can't even go back to the military. I have to go. Xianxia. Take care. Ning Xianxia nodded and said after half a beat, Wanqing, can you tell me? Do you like EMO? Qi Wanqing blushed but eventually shook her head. I don't know, but I really like being together with him. I feel very comfortable with him, safe and happy. But I don't know if this is like. But if I do, then I should be jealous when I see him with other women. But last time when I saw him with your aunt, I felt they should be together and didn't feel jealousy at all. Then, Qi Wanqing's face recovered after a good while. She turned and looked at Ning Qinggux and said, Xianxia, do you think this is like? My dad also felt my thoughts are strange and that's why he told me to go England. I originally didn't really want to go, but my mother also agreed this time. I don't know. Ning Xianxia shook her head subconsciously. She didn't even know how she felt about EMO herself, so how could she judge Qi Wanqing's feelings? Qi Wanqing looked down. After a while, she said, My grandma once told me that if you like someone, you need to grab him. Don't go regretting at the end. However, Grandma doesn't know that not all people you like can be grasped. So, this time my parents want to send me away although I don't want to go, but after thinking about it, perhaps what they said is right. I'm leaving in 2 days. I came here to tell you about it. Yeah, I should go back too. Ning Xianxia suddenly felt very fatigued. She would rather be a strong woman at Ning Family Medicine than be so tired. You must grasp what you like. But can you? Qi Wanqing suddenly raised her head and asked, Xianxia, do you like EMO? Ning Xianxia's eyes were lost. After a while, she replied, I didn't know before, but now I think I probably like him. I don't know when it happened, but Wanqing, I want to go on a holiday and relax. Perhaps when I came back, I would be staying at Ninghai or go back to U State and continue my previous job. If you come back from England, come look for me. Xianxia. Take care, I will be back at most 2 years. When I come back, I will definitely look for you. Perhaps at that time, you would have found your new life goal again and even have a family. Qi Wanqing understood Ning Xianxia's mentality the most. If EMO was just a dependence or gratitude for her, then Ning Xianxia might have really fallen into a single-sided love. Ning Xianxia shook her head and didn't argue with Qi Wanqing's word. Even if she couldn't be with EMO, she still had her other life. As for starting a family, she never thought about it. Su Jiangwen put down the phone. She didn't expect EMO to not be with Ning Xianxia. In that case, should she still go to Luotsang? Jingwen, what are you thinking about? Su Jingwen's mother walked in. She saw her daughter sitting dumbfounded at the table, and so she asked immediately. Nothing, just. She was about to tell her mother the master who sold the charms could be at Luotsang. However, her mother interrupted her. Jingwen, Weijing is back. He just called me, he would be at Ninghai soon. Really? Wei Zheng cousin has already graduated? Su Jingwen's face was full of joy and surprise. Wei Zheng was Xia Weijing. He grew up together with Su Jingwen. From young to maturity, Xia Weijing was a true genius. Not only was he outstandingly smart, he covered for Su Jingwen everywhere. However, he went to America to study, causing their contact to grow less. The last time they met was 2 years ago when Su Jingwen went to America for her mother's condition. The first reaction she got when hearing that Xia Weijing came back was joy. Look at how happy you are. Weijing won't be leaving again this time. He's prepared to develop his career at Ninghai. You need to help him then. Su Jingwen's mom obviously knew that her daughter had a very good impression of Xia Weijing. By the way, Mom, I forgot to tell you. That master who sold me the charms seemed to have appeared in Luotsang. I might know him, although Su Jingwen was sure Yemo was that master, but she wasn't 100% sure before she got to see him. Really? Jingwen, if that master is at Luotsang, you must invite him over. Su Jingwen's mother was also filled with surprise and joy. But he might just be passing by Luotsang, Sai. Su Jingwen thought about Yemo's voice and smile, and caressed the 2 coarse beads on her bracelet, seemingly lost in thought. 3 days later, Ning Xianxia went back to U State. She just stayed there for 2 days and then went with a tourist group to relax. With Li Mumei's observation, Lan Yu knew what her daughter was thinking and could only sigh. When she came back, perhaps she would go back to her old life. Originally, she thought without the harassment of the Song family, Ning Qingxue would soon return to her former self. However, Lan Yu was disappointed. She still seemed to be depressed. Perhaps it was good for her to go relax. This time, she went to a proper tourist organization. Although she wanted to relax by herself, she knew the world was far from as safe as it looked ever since she went to Flowing Snake. God State Tourism was the biggest and most appropriate tourism company in U State, and it was quite famous throughout the country. What was different to other tourism companies was that this tourism company decided pretty much all the locations and designed the route. One specialty was adventure. This company had a lot of wealth and had safety guarantee. This was because they had their own helicopter. The only thing was that it was too expensive. However, this price was irrelevant for rich people. Since they had a lot of safety assurance, it was normal their prices were a bit high. Although Ning Qingxue wanted to go to Tibet, but this company had no plans recently to go to Tibet. Their plan was to go to Xianxia. Due to their power and large crew, although their prices were many times more expensive than others, many people still chose this company. There were 22 people altogether going to Xianxia this time. Most of them were the elite of the job market and some were entrepreneur bosses. However, there were only 7 females, including Ning Qingxue. The tour guide was a girl called Cui Lin. She was in her 20s and looked very lively. She was articulate when telling about the stories and had a vibrant display of body language. After they went to the top of Xianxia, they didn't go to Xianxia sacrificial ground. Instead, they went to a forest to seek the footprints of savages. This was one of the set journeys. Although it was said to find savages in the forests, the tourists knew that it was just a saying to attract tourists. The most enticing was the 3-night stay in the forest untouched by human activity and watch the morning mist in the forest. Even with safety measures, there were too much unpredictable things in this prehistoric forest. The tourist company couldn't take them too deep and just stayed on the outside. Perhaps Ning Qingxue was too pretty. So many young men offered to carry her bag when they were climbing hills in order to start a conversation. However, Ning Qingxue's was not too hot nor cold. She only occasionally spoke to the 2 girls beside her. Most of the time, she didn't really talk and just carried her bag and walked. It was as though she didn't come for a holiday but to walk. After some time, everyone knew her personality and didn't bother her. Emo searched for large amounts of information online and, after comparing them, locked 2 locations. One was the Yundu Valley, and another was Xianxia. Emo found out that the chrysanthemum at Xianxia was more expensive and precious. The place it grew was very hard to reach for normal people even if they had a helicopter. It seemed the place Han Yen drew was at Xianxia. Eventually, Emo decided on going to Xianxia to find the chrysanthemum. Perhaps in this place, he would be able to reach the place Mo Kong and Han Yen was talking about. Of course, Emo wouldn't go with a tourist group. He knew the flowers were at a cliff, so as soon as he entered Xianxia, he went to the No People district. The place was broad, but there were countless dangers there too. However, it wasn't hard for Emo. It was only 2,600 meters above sea level. The 3rd day after Emo entered the Xianxia, he found the chrysanthemum at a cliff. However, the place was not so similar to where Mo Kong drew. Although they were both cliffs, there were no flat ground and the top wasn't too broad either. Just when Emo was prepared to go down and try a different peak, he heard voices from the middle of the cliff. Emo scanned his spirit sense down but couldn't find if there were people near. Were there really savages? Emo did a close study of the geology of Xianxia before he came. Other than some no-man lands and dangerous districts, most of the Xianxia had been excavated by the country and has become a tourist hotspot. Just when Emo wanted to go down, the voice sounded again. It's not here. Looks like it's at Xie Peak. Let's go there then, the faster we get it, the better. Another voice sounded. It was sharper than the previous one. Emo heard it clear. 2 people actually climbed down the cliff. Emo finally found a rope at a corner. He was too bothered with checking if this was the place Mo Kong said that he didn't even notice there was a rope there. The 2 people could climb down such a steep cliff. Even with ropes, it meant that they were pretty good. Emo just managed to hide himself when the two agile men climbed up the cliff quickly. Both of them wore gray clothes. The man who first came up was in his 40s and tied up his hair. He looked like an actor from ancient drama. The man who followed was about the same but had short hair. There was a scar stretching from his ear to his mouth that looked very scary. Cho Tua Peak? Emo thought. Were these two looking for the same thing as him? He saw the two pack things up and took a quick break before rushing down the cliff. Emo followed too. He was very curious as to what they were trying to find. Emo didn't know where Cho Tua Peak was, so he needed the two to lead the way. After following them for a while, he knew these two were indeed not bad, at least about the same as Otanhu. Were they from the hidden sex? The long-haired man suddenly stopped and looked back and around before turning to the other man and saying, Cha-san, I feel that there's someone staring at us. Do you have this feeling too? The man frowned and said after a while, You're thinking too much. No one else know about it other than us. Plus, it's this place. It's normal to have that feeling. The long-haired man nodded. I probably sensed wrong. We should hurry. I don't feel safe until we get that thing. Plus, it was too hard for us to get out this time. The two quickly continued forward. However, Emo took note. He just got near to them a little and was almost found out by this long-haired man. This guy really had something. After another hour or so, the two finally came to another valley. At the bottom, they quickly climbed up a cliff. Emo followed without hesitation. Once they reached the top, Emo immediately knew this was the place he wanted to find. So it was actually called Cho Tua Peak. Looking at how familiar they were with it, it wasn't the first time they came. The top was a big flat area. From afar, one could still smell the chrysanthemum. However, Emo's spirit sense immediately noticed that there was already a man in his 30s at the top. His skin was white and had short hair. However, he seemed very ethereal standing at the top. He carried a long sword behind his back. No wonder I felt I was followed. It was you, Bien Pa. The long-haired man sneered. The man called Bien Pa didn't expect someone to come so quick and sneered. It seems your luck is bad. You found out about this news too and was met by me. Then the man called Bien Pa shook his head. Emo frowned. He really didn't feel worried about this long-haired man and Cha-san. But this Bien Pa gave him a feeling that he couldn't see through. He even noticed Bien Pa look towards his side. If that was real, then this Bien Pa was too scary, even if he didn't know if they were looking for the same thing as him. Bien Pa, our power is about the same. Although you can beat any of us alone, but with us two together, you won't be able to win. How about we work together and split it into 3, 1 each? This time it was Cha-san who talked. 1 each, humph, you overestimate yourself. Take my fist first. Then, Bien Pa stepped forward and launched a fist. Cha-san hummed and returned with a fist. He will make Bien Pa know that he was not a coward. Clash. Cha-san actually took many steps back and was stopped by the long-haired man. There was blood in the corner of his mouth. Just one fist and he was injured. You broke through. Cha-san looked at Bien Pa who didn't move at all. He didn't expect Bien Pa to break through to the next state. In the entire hidden sex, the amount of people who was able to break through to Earth level could be counted. Bien Pa was so young but he already reached Earth level. What was this? Brother Bien, we admit defeat. The thing is yours. Let's go, Cha-san. The long-haired man saluted with his fist and was about to drag Cha-san down the cliff. Bien Pa sneered and pulled out the long sword from behind his back and caressed it. Then he said, You know there's red leaf pumpkin fruit here? Do you think you can still go? What do you want? The long-haired man released Cha-san and pulled out a small axe from behind him. Cha-san, on the other hand, knew that if they didn't defeat Bien Pa today, they would probably lose their lives here. He also grabbed the short dagger at his waist. What do I want? Of course, it's your petty lives. Then, Bien Pa seemed to fly as his sword sliced towards the two. A gust of blade light spilled encompassing the two. Even Emo, who was meters out, felt a frosty feeling. Such an overlord-like sword technique. Cha-san yelled and focused all his energy into the dagger and swept towards that sword veil. His force seemed to be even a little stronger than Bien Pa. However, Emo's spirit sense noticed that his leg was shaking. Emo sighed. Even if he wasn't scared at all, Bien Po's sword wasn't something he could stop, much less when he was already afraid before the fight. Plus the wound he received before, his situation was dire. Emo could tell from the momentum of the sword that he was no match for Bien Po now. The long-haired man suddenly threw his short axe and turned to run, completely disregarding Cha San's situation. Emo sighed. If the two worked together, perhaps they could fight a few rounds with this Bien Po. However, this long-haired guy ran, meaning that their defeat was inevitable. Cha San, who was already afraid, saw that the long-haired man felt more worried. His dagger that had some momentum slumbered. Bien Po sneered. His blade light moved down a little, and this white ray pierced Cha San's waist without hesitation. This wasn't it. The blade light turned back and hit the long-haired man's axe. Clank. The long-haired man's axe actually flew back and pierced into the long-haired man's back as though it had eyes. The long-haired man gave a howl and fell to the ground while the handle of the axe on his back wobbled. At this moment, Cha San split into two parts and died. Then, Bien Po raised his sword and looked. There didn't seem to be a drop of blood on it. He nodded satisfactorily and looked towards where Emo was hiding and blandly said, "Do I have to invite you out?" Emo knew he was caught, so there was no point in hiding. He stood up from behind the stone. Although Bien Po knew there was a person behind there, he was still surprised when Emo came out. He didn't expect Emo to be so young. He looked just in his 20s. "Where are you from?" Bien Po studied Emo and asked. If the long-haired man didn't say he was following him, he really might not be able to find Emo. That long-haired guy was a pig brain. How do you follow from the front? The reason he could kill those two so quickly was because he used their fear towards Earth-level masters. If they really fought with their lives, it wouldn't be so easy for him, and he might not even be able to kill them in the end. However, this youth couldn't even be found by those two, so he should be quite strong. Moreover, Emo was so young that he was shocked. Emo compared Bien Po's sword technique to the one who used sword at the Yi family mansion. He found that Bien Po's sword technique was on another level. He didn't want to fight someone like him, even if he had to, he didn't want to now. However, he knew that Bien Po said that there was a red leaf pumpkin fruit here. With Bien Po's cruelty, how could he let him go? "Would you believe it if I said I came to Xianxia for a holiday?" Emo scanned the surrounding with his spirit sense. It was very hard to escape here. Other than one way down the mountain, there were cliffs everywhere. Bien Po smiled, but his face was expressionless. "I believe you, but that is useless for you. Watch my sword." As he spoke, his sword turned into a gust of white and rolled towards Emo. Even with spirit sense, he couldn't notice that the sword had sliced towards him. Emo's face drastically changed. He had to twist his body quickly to barely avoid this sword. The blade sliced where Emo was standing before and created a deep mark. If the slice connected, Emo would have been cut in half already. Emo stood far at the other side of the cliff, staring at Bien Po while his spirit sense was focused on his wrist. He didn't expect someone like Bien Po to use sneak attacks on him. Even so, Emo wasn't annoyed. In his view, no matter what means one used in a fight, one would win as long as they killed the opponent. "Not bad, you dodged that attack." Bien Po was surprised but soon calmed down. After one sentence, his sword swept towards Emo again. Emo had focused his attention on Bien Po's movement. Seeing that he attacked again, he knew he was at a disadvantage without a weapon, especially when Bien Po was stronger than him. Even if they had the same power, it would be very hard to defeat Bien Po without a weapon. His only thought was to find an opportunity to dash down the cliff and run. This time, Bien Po sliced 7 times, which connected into one slice, sealing all of Emo's retreat path. Emo casually took out Xian Daoist's whip. He was sure that if he didn't have spirit sense, a few of him would have died already. Even with spirit sense, many segments of the whip broke after this round of attack. The remnant of the whip was not much longer than Bien Po's sword. Xian Daoist's whip was a not bad attacking artifact, but it was like grass under Bien Po's hacks. If he didn't have this whip, perhaps Emo would have lost an arm already. From the start till now, Emo was suppressed. His clothes had been torn apart by the sword chi, and there were 7 or 8 slashes on his ripped body. It looked very scary. However, Yemo knew that this was only the first round of attacks. Bienpo was too scary. Was there such a difference in one level? If he was still stage 2 now, he would have been long dead. Even now, if Yemo didn't think of a way, death awaited him. Bienpo's second round of attacks still weren't able to kill Yemo. He stopped his attack as his eyes grew cold. He stared at Yemo for a while before asking, "Just who are you? How can you survive under my 7 consecutive strikes? And where did you get your whip from? Speak." Yemo sneered. Although Bienpo was much stronger than him, he still found something. When Xian Daoist's whip was broken, he found Bienpo's weakness. Bienpo must have just reached Earth level. Although his 7 strikes were strong, there was a gap between each attack. This gap gave Yemo a sliver of chance. Without this sliver, even if Yemo had the whip, he would have been killed. Stop wasting time. If you want to fight, then fight. Yemo calmed his chi and quickly thought of how he could use his wind blade to get in a surprise attack and then run. Okay. I'll see how long you can last. Bienpo sneered. His long sword changed again, carrying this white light as he charged towards Yemo. Ning Qingxue, what are you looking at? It was nighttime. The tour guide saw that at a far-off place. Ning Qingxue kept looking at a big rock. Look at this. Ning Qingxue pointed at that huge rock and said worriedly, there are 2 people fighting. What's that? Was there illusions at Shinongjia? Not right. Stop, Cui Lin said. She saw 2 shadows fighting, but they had just split. They're fighting again. Cui Lin saw the 2 fight. She had been a tour guide for a few years, but she had never encountered this sort of thing. Cui Lin turned and looked at Ning Qingxue. She found that Ning Qingxue seemed to have more attention on one of the figures. She seemed to be quite excited. Cui Lin didn't care but said to herself, if it was at Wu Liang Mountain, I would have thought it was a goddess practicing sword. This is too fascinating. I'll get everyone to come and see. Then Cui Lin quickly went to call people. Ning Qingxue, however, stared dumbly at the figure on the rock. Her heart was beating rapidly, as though it was going to jump out of her chest. She could feel one of them was Yemo. The moves and shape, it was exactly the same as the person of her dreams. Was she thinking too much? If Ning Qingxue didn't also see it, she would have thought she was dreaming? Or was it because she yearned for Yemo too much that she had the illusion? Illusion? Ning Qingxue suddenly thought. Were there actually 2 people fighting and the sun reflected it here? The 2 figures on the big rock gradually thinned out until it moved to the side and disappeared. Ning Qingxue's heart continued beating rapidly and quickly took out the telescope on her chest and looked at the 2 figures. She felt that one of them was definitely Yemo. She was actually so sure it was him. Yemo's figure had appeared in her brain countless times, so she knew she wouldn't see wrong. Ning Qingxue didn't spend much time until she was shocked as though she was struck by lightning. On a distant peak, there 2 obfuscated figure fighting. It's real, it's actually real. Yemo, is that really you? Why are you here? Ning Qingxue was screaming in her heart. She hoped that she could just teleport to that cliff and help Yemo even if it was throwing a stone at his opponent. However, she knew that cliff was too far from here. Even though the sun was good today, once the mist came up, she wouldn't be able to see there. Ning Qingxue held the telescope, but she could only watch from there. She had no way of helping. Although Yemo had found a way to avoid the blade light, after the 3rd round, there were more slashes on his body. Other than a few whips, Yemo couldn't even make a threatening attack. Yemo's whip had just turned into a handle. There were blood trickling down his chest to his waist that slowly dampened his pants. Yemo's face was getting pale. He knew that if this continued, the next round of blades would be his end. However, this Bienpo was not only scarily strong in his attacks, but his defenses were rather strong too. After 3 rounds of attacks, Yemo couldn't even find a place to attack. Yemo knew he only had one chance. If he wasted it, then he would be dead. Bienpo also breathed heavily. His clothes were also ripped by Yemo's whip. A few whip marks could even be seen clearly. You're a rather strong opponent. But even so, this day next year will be your remembrance day. Bienpo didn't mind the light wounds on him at all and attacked again. Emo suddenly threw the hilt of the whip to Bienpe and jumped as though he was jumping off a cliff. "You're asking to die." Bienpe saw that Emo dared to make a forced escape and sneered. His long sword turned into a white ray that struck towards Emo, not even bothering with the hilt Emo threw at him. Bienpe saw that Emo couldn't dodge and was about to be cut in half by the sword, but just as the sword was about to hit. However, Emo suddenly dropped down as though he didn't charge straight but was free-falling. Such amazing control, being able to do this in mid-air. Even Bienpe was amazed. But even so, he didn't go easy at all. His sword turned 90 degrees without a trace and cut down towards Emo again. Emo had to admire Bienpe for his sword technique. He held back some power on each sword so he could change moves at any time. "I'll let you guys die together." Bienpe saw that the place Emo landed was where the long-haired man lay. He sneered as his sword attacked fast. At that moment, Bienpe froze. He found that Emo disappeared. His sword stopped and Emo used this opportunity to escape. He used this technique for Daoxian, but he wasn't sure whether it would work against Bienpe. When Bienpe noticed he disappeared, he froze for that little bit of time, but that time was enough for him to escape. Invisibility artifact? Bienpe immediately found Emo's location and attacked him again. Despite using invisibility to escape this certain death sword, the blade light still slashed a deep wound in his back. Before Bienpe attacked him again, Emo threw the short axe in his hand out. "Small trick." Bienpe sneered. The moment he saw Emo charge towards that long-haired man, he guessed that Emo might use that axe. As he expected, Emo's axe flew over towards his shoulder. Bienpe sneered. This young man wanted to cut his right arm off. This guy had completely overestimated himself. This axe still had a howl to it. Obviously, Emo wasn't very good at projectiles. But soon, Bienpe noticed something weird. The frosty wind with the axe was a bit shocking. He couldn't understand how did a simple axe carry such frosty wind. But in that moment, the axe already came to his right shoulder. He didn't even think and turned his sword to deflect the axe. He wanted to do what he did to the long-haired man. However, what he couldn't understand was that before the axe reached his right shoulder, it suddenly turned and attacked his left shoulder, but its momentum was a lot weaker. "Idiot." Bienpe sneered once again. Ordinary masters at projectiles knew how to make them turn midway. It was with the way one used inner chi. To him, Emo obviously was not familiar with it because when the axe turned, it became so much slower. Even if the speed didn't slow down, it would be impossible for him to be hit, much less when it was slowed. Bienpe wanted to use his left hand to grab the axe, but he felt something was wrong. His right arm was cut broken by some unknown projectile, and that wasn't it. This unseen frosty wind didn't stop and slice towards his waist. Not good. Bienpe immediately retreated and, at the same time, threw out the axe while picking up his broken pace. There wasn't any stopping between these movements. That's how fast he reacted. Emo didn't have time to sigh that he didn't cut Bienpe's waist since the axe was flying over. The same time he dodged the axe, Emo knew that as long as he didn't kill Bienpe, he wasn't out of danger. Even without a hand, it would still be very easy for Bienpe to kill him. He calculated everything and even used the axe to cover his wind blade, but wasn't able to cut Bienpe's waist off. From this, it could be seen how strong the other party was. Luckily, he aimed for the arm first, otherwise, Bienpe could have easily seen through if he aimed towards his waist right at the start. When Bienpe retreated to the cliffside, so did Emo. He was very angry having his arm cut off in a strange way by an insect. He grabbed his long sword with his left hand and didn't talk. His sword spun around and was going to encompass Emo again. Emo kept his spirit sense on the sword. Soon, he felt relieved. Although Bienpe's left-hand sword technique was very good, it was far from his right hand. It was the same sword light, but Emo clearly captured where the sword was. Emo didn't even think and grabbed towards the back of the single-bladed sword. At the same time, he focused his chi wanting to control the sword. Even though his left hand wasn't as good as his right hand, if Emo let Bienpe use his sword technique, he would still die. Humph. Bienpe didn't expect Emo to be able to grab the back of the sword. He sneered and was about to gather energy to pull back the sword and cut Emo from the waist. But at this time, A huge power came from the sword's back. Emo actually jumped out of the cliff and pulled him out too. Bien-Pa wouldn't let go of his sword at all and twisted the sword. There was a huge power and Emo immediately let go. You want me to fall off the cliff with you? Keep dreaming. I won't even let my sword go with you. Bien-Pa twisted in mid-air and before his breath of inner chi finished, he dashed towards the cliff again in mid-air. Emo sneered. Although he was falling, he raised his hands at the same time. Multiple wind blades sliced towards the space between Bien-Pa and the edge of the cliff. As soon as Bien-Pa reached the edge, he felt multiple frosty winds coming at him. He remembered how strong it was and didn't think before turning around and raising his sword to block it. Not good. As soon as Bien-Pa dodged those frosty winds, he realized he wasn't on the cliff but outside it. His inner chi was exhausted after dodging the projectile, so it would be too hard for it to bring him back to the cliff. Bien-Pa started to fall rapidly. Even so, he wanted to use his sword and stop on the side of the cliff. However, Emo wouldn't let him have it his way. Although he was falling too, he had wind-controlling technique and was in a much better situation than Bien-Pa. He kept attacking Bien-Pa until he didn't have enough inner chi to climb up the wall. Then, Emo threw a few fireballs at him. Although it didn't reach him, Bien-Pa's face changed drastically. If it was on the ground, those few fireballs wouldn't be more threatening than a few bricks. However, he had nowhere to exert force and could only see the fireball come at him. I didn't think I would die here, Bien-Pa yelled furiously. He threw his long sword out. Boom! All the fireballs landed on Bien-Pa's body. Bien-Pa howled and his entire body disappeared in the fireball. The slowly falling body immediately fell down like a cannonball disappearing from Emo's eyes. Although he fell, his sword still flew towards Emo. Emo's chi was almost used up, so he could only barely avoid to get his vitals hit. The sword still passed through his back. Emo, who was already bloodied, immediately started to bleed like a fountain. If he didn't dodge this at the last minute, he would have probably been killed already. But even so, Emo felt dizzy. Luckily, this sword dragged him to the edge of the cliff. In the fuzziness of consciousness, Emo didn't even think and just grabbed onto what he could. Rip. The vines couldn't seem to bear Emo's weight and just slowed him before he continued falling. Emo bit his tongue and reached for things to grab on the cliff. He would grab anything he could, but these only slowed his speed and didn't stop him from falling. Xianxia saw that the two figures fell down the cliff and was shocked. She could no longer hold the telescope as it fell down and wobbled on her neck. Here! Quick! I saw it here. With Chui Lin's voice, more than 10 members of the tourist group came. Where? Where are the people fighting? One young man asked immediately. Chui Lin looked at the huge rock in shock. After a while, she said in shock, Xianxia and I both saw it. There were two figures fighting on this rock. Why did it disappear so quick? By the way, Xianxia, you were always here. When did it disappear? I think your eyes flashed. Do you think this is the home of a goddess at Wuliang Mountain? One of them immediately joked. Although Chui Lin was a tour guide, she was very competitive and quickly said, I really saw it. If you don't believe me, ask Xianxia. Seeing that everyone was looking at her, she took a while to react and pointed at a distant peak and said, I seem to have saw people there. I want to go have a look. It seemed to be due to Xianxia not wanting to talk much, but no one doubted her words. After a while, a man in his 40s said, Don't think about it, it may seem not far to you, but it's a long journey to walk there. Plus, this is a no-man's land. We're just in the outskirts. The no-man's land of Xianxia is very dangerous, so it's best if you don't go in. What danger is there? I will go have a look. A youth in his 20s heard Xianxia's words and wanted to show off. He ran a few steps forward, turned back and said, It's only some time. Xianxia is no longer the same as before. They say there are savages, but which one of you saw? Arg. This youth was originally just joking, but when he wanted to turn, he felt the bottom of his foot was empty as he fell down. Luckily, he reacted fast and grabbed the rim of the hole that appeared out of nowhere. At this moment, a few people reacted and came to help pull him up. This youth looked at the pitch-black hole. He was scared, sweating. Half a beat later, he said still shakily, "If I fell down, I would have lost my life for sure. Not good, retreat. There are more places cracking open nearby." Another man found that the ground was cracking at where people were standing. The people were frightened and retreated. Just when people retreated to the edge, the holes that cracked open rumbled, and suddenly, a much larger black hole appeared in front of them. There was a murmuring sound from the hole, making people's bones chill. It was pitch black looking inside, and nothing could be seen. It was as though the mouth of a giant. "What is this?" A woman in her 30s looked at this hole. She was speaking with a shaky tone. "It should be the sky pitch of Xianxia. It's said that there are lots of these in the no man's land. There are also mist regions. These places are where you can't come out from. I didn't think we would encounter it. Retreat quickly." The middle-aged man from before spoke again. Hearing his words, everyone retreated. Xianxia also followed everyone to the side of a tent in fear. Finally, people gasped sighs of relief when they went back to the campsite. "I actually encountered the sky ditch. This is too coincidental." "What was that murmuring sound?" people asked as soon as they went back to the tents. "It's not a coincidence. There are many of these at Xianxia. There's pretty much no living if you fall in one of those. And those murmuring sound, I suspect it's due to wind circulating inside," the middle-aged man said seriously. The youth who almost fell in finally caught his breath now that everyone was talking. He said, "Almost lost my life there. No wonder there are so many people who have gone missing at Xianxia. We're just at the outskirts. If we go in, 80% chance we'll lose our lives." "PFTT, didn't you just say there was no danger but just time-consuming?" Someone retaliated immediately. This youth lost his face and said, "It seems I just know too little." At this moment, Chui Lin also came over with a bad face. "The tourism company just notified us to get out and cancel the plan at the no man's land." Surprisingly, no one objected. Everyone was scared by this experience and felt adventure was not such a simple thing. The 20 or so people packed their bags and heard an even sharper howl from the ditches. This definitely wasn't made by the wind. Everyone looked at each other. After a long while, the middle-aged man said, "Leave quick. That sound seemed to be coming over here. There are too many unknown dangers in Xianxia. Let's go out first." No one objected and ran outside quickly. Although it was dark, but people ran quite fast. They didn't take much time to get out. When everyone came out of the no man's land, they gradually calmed down. "Count the people, we should go to the nearest tourist spot," the middle-aged man said. Although Chui Lin was the tour guide, she seemed a bit nervous and started to count people. 21, we're missing one." Chui Lin's voice was shaky. Obviously, she knew what one person missing meant. The middle-aged man immediately said, "Let me count, 1, 2. We're indeed missing one." Everyone looked around to check who didn't come out. "Call the police, we can't go back in. It's too dangerous." Zhang Chong didn't come out. People immediately realized who was left behind. The young guy who stepped into the ditch? The middle-aged man immediately found out who Zhang Qing was. How come it had to be him who didn't make it? Was it because of the sky ditch? Someone had asked the question no one dared to ask. The people immediately sunk into silence. No one brought up to go back and look for Zhang Chong. This thing seemed eerie. "I think Zhang Chong might be scared and lost his way running outside." The middle-aged man said something even if he didn't really believe it. This many people didn't get lost, but he did. Chui Lin worriedly said, "What do we do now? Do we go back and look for him?" No one replied. Everyone was scared of the sky ditch. No one had the guts to go back in to find someone. Wait for the rescue team. No one wanted to go risk their lives for a stranger. Even the middle-aged man went quiet. After all, what just happened was too terrifying. Xianxia followed them quietly to the nearest tourist spot. When everyone went in the hotel, the rescue team had went in. There were 2 tourist groups that followed the rescue team. Xianxia finally understood the dangers of Xianxia. She even wanted to look under that cliff, but now, it seemed that before she got there, she would have lost her life. This wasn't something that could be done with courage. Sometimes power was needed and she didn't have that power now. She could no longer calm down not being able to see if that person was Yimo. She came out to relax and hid Yimo's figure from her mind in the depths of her heart. But now, she felt her mood was even messier. Yimo's figure kept swinging around in front of her eyes. The moment he fell from the cliff became clearer and clearer. Did she think too much and thought of someone else as him? Otherwise, why did he go to that place? Ning Qingxue thought of Yi Mo's small medical case. Perhaps he was gathering herbs there. Cui Lin was still quite anxious. It was the first time someone has gone missing when she was a tour guide. Cui Lin, I want to ask you something. Your company has a helicopter. Can it be rented to save others? Ning Qingxue, however, came to Cui Lin and asked about this. Cui Lin shook her head and said, "The company rarely mobilized the helicopter. Renting it is impossible. It isn't a simple thing. They needed to verify there is a target and then apply for a permit. Otherwise, the helicopter can't be mobilized easily." Ning Qingxue had understood, to be honest, the helicopter was just a way of making people feel safe. It was useless when something really happened. With this occurrence, no one had the mood to play. The tour group went back to U State the next day, but Ning Qingxue didn't go back with them. She went back to Ninghai. She knew it was a dream to go back to that cliff with her own ability. Plus, she wasn't even sure if that person was Yimo. Perhaps she thought about Yimo so much that even a figure was recognized as Yimo by her. Even if she really went and that person was Yimo, he wouldn't be alive falling from such a high cliff. Although she really wanted to ask for a helicopter, but she couldn't even say what person she was saving. If only Qi Wanqing was here, her father would be able to help. The main purpose of going back to Ninghai was to confirm if the person she saw was Yimo. Although she wasn't sure if Yimo would come to Ninghai, she still wanted to go look at Yimo's school. It was because this was the time to get the graduation certificate, so perhaps Yimo would come back for it. Plus, she wanted to ask Su Jingwen about some things. Ning Qingxue went back to Ninghai and saw that flower in the pot was growing very well. She felt relieved. Seems Su Wei looked after this grass quite well. But soon, she noticed something different. She saw that there were many small buds next to the grass. Who grew that? No, they were the same breed as the grass she grew. It just didn't look like it was growing very well. The moment she saw them, her mood was excited again. Did Yimo come back? Ning Qingxue felt her breaths were desperate. Ning Qingxue suddenly charged into the room. The room on the east side still had its door closed. Ning Qingxue had calmed down now. She felt she was getting crazy. How could Yimo come back? When that bead saved her life, she even felt she was getting further and further away from him, as though they weren't in the same world. Ning Qingxue carefully opened the room. There were some dust there. She sighed and started to clean up. She would ask about the grass buds when Su Wei came back. Ning Qingxue packed her things up. Su Wei hadn't come back yet. She was in an annoyed mood and wanted to walk outside. She subconsciously walked to the street where Yimo was selling fake medicine. Although the streets were still busy and the sky wasn't dark, the businessmen had started to gather. Ning Qingxue bought another golden cake and stood where Yimo had his stall. She sat down as though feeling Yimo's mood when he sat here. He must have been thinking if only there was a customer. Come have a look. Recipe passed down from ancestor, cures all illness, headache, fever, external internal injury, short-sightedness. There's only what you can't imagine. Nothing I can't cure. Yimo's voice was still there. But where was he? Ning Qingxue bit down on the golden cake. It was still the from same store made by the same person. But today the golden cake felt bitter. Was it missing something? Ning Qingxue stood up. She prepared to go see Su Jingwen tomorrow and then go to Ninghai University. At this moment, her phone rung. It was Su Jingwen. Qingxue, did you come back to Ninghai? Su Jingwen's tone was very crisp. She seemed to be in a good mood lately. Did Mumei tell you? I was preparing to come see you for something tomorrow, Ning Qingxue said subconsciously. She just got back to Ninghai today. Only Li Mumei knew. Now that Su Jingwen also knew, Li Mumei probably told her. Su Jingwen immediately replied, "Yeah. Where are you? I'll go to your place. I have some things too. Ning Qingxue didn't wait long at a cafe before Su Jingwen arrived. Qingxue, why do you look so emaciated? What happened? Su Jingwen thought about the questions she was going to ask. In her memory, Ning Qingxue cared a lot about her appearance, but now her bleakness could be easily seen. Just what happened to her? Ning Qingxue shook her head and said after a while, Nothing. I just want to ask you one thing. You once told me that you bought the charms from a master. Do you know how to use it? Su Jingwen looked at Ning Qingxue in surprise, but she still answered, Yes. I've used quite a few. But now, I know who the person who sold them to me is. Is it Yimo? Ning Qingxue suddenly stood up. Su Jingwen looked at Ning Qingxue in shock. It's him. But Qingxue, how did you know? So it's true. Ning Qingxue murmured before sitting down again. Her eyes drifted off. By the way, you're with Yimo. He would teach you? Su Jingwen said saltily. But soon, she changed into a lighter tone. Is Yimo really not her Luozong? Ning Qingxue shook her head but didn't speak as though she was thinking about something. At this moment, a tall youth walked into the cafe. Su Jingwen quickly stood up and waved her hand. Weijing cousin, this way. The youth walked over and immediately saw Ning Qingxue, who was frowning. He felt his brain was blasted. He thought of Lin Daiyu. There was actually such woman in the world. He had always thought Jingwen was extremely pretty. But when he saw Ning Qingxue, he understood that there was someone prettier than Su Jingwen. The girl's pretty brows lightly frowned, and a few messy strands of hair made her seem more innocent. There wasn't even the slightest mark of makeup as she kept her natural face on. However, her face seemed emaciated, and her clothing were very casual. Who was this girl? Yemo woke up slowly and felt his body was full of pain. He immediately wanted to struggle to stand up. Crack, not good. It seemed he wasn't on the ground yet. As expected, he started to fall again. Luckily, the branch he landed on was already near the ground. Splat, Yemo fell to the ground. The ground was covered in thick leaves and mud, so it wasn't very hard. Yemo finally didn't get injured again. But immediately, the pain all over his body woke him up. He was indeed injured heavily. He subconsciously wanted to get some medical pills from his ring, but as soon as he moved his spirit sense, his head was cracking with pain. He almost fainted again. Yemo quickly stopped. What was this? He couldn't use his spirit sense. Was he too heavily wounded? Yemo looked at the wounds on his body. Bleeding had stopped, but there was a fit of dizziness that made him want to drink water. Yemo sat down wanting to treat himself with qi. His dantian felt the same as his spirit sense. As soon as he used it, there was immense pain. What was this? Yemo looked at his body. Although there was a lot of bleeding, most wounds had healed itself. It seemed to be related to the herbs he usually consumed. At this moment, not only could he not use his spirit sense, but he also couldn't use qi to treat himself. If he continued like this, he would die at the bottom of this cliff. The two wounds that didn't heal were the long slash on his back and the one on his waist. Could be said that this sword saved him too. Although he was more heavily injured due to this sword, if Bienpe didn't throw it out, he might have fallen into a puddle of meat. It was due to this sword that brought him near the edge of the cliff. He could keep grabbing on things and that saved his life. Luckily, this was the Xianxia. If it was somewhere else, the cliff wall would be barren and he would still die. Yemo looked at the long sword not far away and grabbed it over. He used it to support himself to stand as he studied the bottom of this cliff. It was gray everywhere and he couldn't see much far. He thought and decided to find a safe place to treat his wounds first. If his power recovered, then he could still go up this place. Yemo didn't think he would come to this situation just for some herbs. He was almost killed by that Bienpe. Other than getting his sword, he realized the power of a real Earth-level master. However, other than that, he got nothing and had a body full of wounds. Ancient martial arts could be this strong at the Earth level. Yemo was sure that even if he was stage 4 Qi gathering, he couldn't say for sure if he could beat this Bienpe. If this wasn't the cliff where he fell, and if he didn't use all sorts of calculations to drag Bienpe down the cliff with him, then he would also be dead. No wonder these people didn't want to go to the mortal world. They could cultivate ancient martial arts to this state, and that was only elementary stage of Earth level. If he was a tertiary stage Earth level or even a heaven level master, how scary would that be? Just when Emo stood up and didn't even move, he felt danger. There was a crunching sound behind him. Emo didn't even turn back and sliced behind him. PSH. A snake the size of a beer bottle had its head sliced off by Emo. The blood shot high into the air from its neck. Such a sharp sword. Emo looked at the long sword. There wasn't any blood stains on it. It was indeed a good sword. He turned around and looked at the snake, and his face turned serious. The snake was already 3 meters long. Even if it didn't have poison, he would die if the snake went around him. Emo endured the stench and drank some snake blood. He felt a little better. Then, he took the long sword and started to pave the way. This was a swamp. If he sunk in, he would still die. Emo moved very slowly. He knew that a place that had no human signs for most of the time wasn't a good place. He just needed to look around at the white mist and knew that this place wasn't safe. There were some bones of animals scattered around. Emo carefully avoided them. As expected, as soon as Emo avoided it, a black shadow darted like lightning towards Emo from amongst the bones. Before this black shadow reached in front of Emo, that stench was already unbearable. Emo sneered. Even if he couldn't use chi, he couldn't be bullied by animals like that. He swung his sword and the black shadow made a sharp howl. It left behind a furry tail and a few drops of blood. In the blink of an eye, it snuck back into the swamp. It had the tail of a cat. Emo probed it with the sword but couldn't tell what attacked him. Ning Qingxue noticed the youth's impolite stare and frowned. Su Jingwen noticed it and quickly said, "Cousin Weijing, this is my friend Ning Qingxue." "Qingxue, this is my cousin I told you about, Weijing." Ning Qingxue nodded. If she didn't still have more questions to ask, she wanted to leave. "Hello, I'm Xia Weijing, Jingwen's cousin. It's a pleasure to meet you." Weijing also noticed his impoliteness. He immediately smiled and extended his hand to Ning Qingxue. He thought that Ning Qingxue probably wasn't from a rich family judging by her clothes. He was really happy to meet a girl as pretty as Ning Qingxue. Ning Qingxue frowned and just drank the coffee that was just handed to her. Xia Weijing took his hand back awkwardly. He didn't expect this girl to be so rude. No matter what, since she was Su Jingwen's friend, she couldn't treat him like that. He kept his smile, but it was quite forced. Su Jingwen quickly said, "Cousin, what do you want to drink? I'll order for you." Anything." "Jingwen, I have a ball with my classmate at night. Do you want to go?" Xia Weijing came today to ask Su Jingwen to the ball. He then looked at Ning Qingxue. He thought it would be good if he could invite both of them. Su Jingwen knew Ning Qingxue's personality. She would treat her cousin the same even if he was HT Mayor's son, much less just a student from America. She also knew about Ning Qingxue's other things. She ignored Song Shaoan, the young master of one of the 5 big families, much less Xia Weijing. She didn't even ask Ning Qingxue and said, "I'm not going. I still have some business tonight." "Jingwen, how can you not go? If you don't go, I won't even have a dance partner. That's too embarrassing." "Jingwen, you must help your cousin. You need to go," Xia Weijing quickly said. Su Jingwen shook her head again and said, "Cousin, you know I don't like to dance. Plus, I've never danced with a guy. I think I'll pass. Plus, you're so handsome. Would you be scared no one would dance with you?" "Jingwen, you used to always stick with me. But this time I come back, you just try to help me with my company. You even rejected my invitation to a ball. You really make me lose face. I feel you have changed a lot." Xia Weijing sighed. Su Jingwen laughed. "Cousin, you're thinking too much. I'm still the same me. I just don't really like that sort of place, plus that was when I was young. I'm old now, so I can't be like before. I'm very happy you can come back to start your company." There were a few times that Ning Qingxue just wanted to ask. Then she would get up and leave. However, she wasn't done today, and it wasn't too suitable for her to go now. She felt this Xia Weijing was very annoying. Even if he wanted to talk to his cousin, couldn't he do it after she was done? He knew she was with her friend but still came. This guy was really impolite. Little did she know that she was also impolite in his eyes. Xia Weijing no longer had a face full of smile when he first came in. He was rejected in handshake and he was also rejected by his cousin. He was quite unhappy. Now that Su Jingwen said that, he stopped the topic, took out a red box, and handed it to Su Jingwen and said, "Jingwen, I ordered this for you." "What's this?" Su Jingwen looked at the exquisite box and asked. Xia Weijing's smile returned to his face. He looked at Su Jingwen and smiled. "You'll know once you open it." Su Jingwen was really confused and opened the box. There was an exquisite bracelet. The beads were very bright, and it could be easily seen that each bead was expensive. "Bracelet," Su Jingwen repeated. Xia Weijing smiled. "Yeah, I saw that the bracelet you had seemed quite shabby, and there were only 2 coarse beads, so I made one just for you. You must have not gone shopping for a long time. Wear it and see." Su Jingwen smiled beautifully, closed the box and said, "Cousin Weijing, thank you very much for giving such a beautiful bracelet. This is nothing. As long as you like it, try it on." Xia Weijing saw Ning Qingxue take a look at the bracelet for a while and then stared at her. He smiled and knew that Ning Qingxue must have liked this bracelet too. He would get her one later as well. Su Jingwen's smile was a bit forced and could only say, "Cousin, I'm already wearing one. I'll take yours and wear it perhaps later. Jingwen, your bracelet looks really coarse and there are only 2 beads on it. It really doesn't match your hand. Just change one, I feel this new one can match you. Come, try it." Then, Xia Weijing picked up the bracelet and passed it to Su Jingwen. Ning Qingxue saw that Su Jingwen's bracelet only had 2 beads as well. That meant she had something happen to her as well and used up 1 bead. She was a bit disappointed. If Su Jingwen really didn't want the other 2 beads, she would take it. Now, it seemed that Su Jingwen came to her due to the jade beads. "But cousin, I really like the current one, I don't want to switch now." Su Jingwen saw that it was too hard to reject his fervor, so she could only speak the truth. Xia Weijing, who thought Su Jingwen was embarrassed to take it, finally understood. Su Jingwen really didn't want to switch. Thinking about this, his face got awkward. As though seeing this, Su Jingwen quickly said, "Cousin, let's not talk about this now. I'll call some desserts. I still haven't ate yet. By the way, Qingxue, what do you want?" Before Ning Qingxue said anything, Xia Weizhang continued, "Jingwen, tell me the truth. Who gave you the bracelet? Is it very precious?" Su Jingwen glanced awkwardly at Ning Qingxue once. Although she felt her cousin shouldn't have asked that question here. But since he did, she could only answer, "Yes, a friend gave it to me." "Then is it much more precious than the one I gave?" Xia Weijing started to feel this indescribable feeling of discomfort, but he still wanted to ask things clear. Su Jingwen hesitated and looked at Xia Weijing's bracelet and said after a while, "Perhaps it's a bit more precious, but..." Su Jingwen didn't know how to explain it to Xia Weijing. She said Yumo's bracelet was more precious, and it really was. However, Xia Weijing misunderstood Su Jingwen's intentions. He thought that what Su Jingwen meant was that the person was much more important than him. Thinking about this, even though he was magnanimous, his face still grew bad. Su Jingwen's immediately discerned the annoyance on her cousin's face and quickly said, "Cousin, don't think too much. I'm really just used to the bracelet in my hand. I don't want to change it for now." Xia Weijing suddenly smiled. His face returned to normal as he suddenly said, "Cousin, the person who gave this to you is your boyfriend, right? When did you have a boyfriend? I didn't even know. Bring him next time and introduce us." Hearing Xia Weijing's words, Su Jingwen quickly waved her hands. "Cousin, don't say random things. He's not my boyfriend, just a friend that we can get along." Then, Su Jingwen also subconsciously looked at Ning Qingxue. Although she knew their relationship wasn't good, she still didn't want Ning Qingxue to misunderstand. However, Xia Weijing smiled plainly. "You said you don't like dancing and have never danced with a guy. Last time at your birthday you seem to have danced with a guy. Did he give you this bracelet? And you say you don't like guys in your car, but can you be sure the person who gave you this bracelet hasn't rode in your car?" Su Jingwen's face didn't have the smile before. In her memory, Xia Weijing was always the big brother who protected her. But now he was investigating her. She couldn't let this go, and he was talking to her in such tone. For the first time, she felt the cousin she hadn't seen for so many years wasn't the same cousin. Sorry, Jingwen. I was too emotional. But you would even reject a ball invitation. You're letting them laugh at me. I came back to stay at Ninghai this time intentionally, so I think you should understand. Xia Weizheng could no longer care about Ning Qingxue on the side. Regardless of whether he was going for Ning Qingxue, he wasn't going to let Su Jingwen pass. Su Jingwen didn't expect Xia Weizheng to be this impulsive. He didn't even consider Ning Qingxue on the side. She felt uncomfortable. It didn't matter if he was talking about other people, but he was talking about Yimo, cousin, you're right. I'm still the same to you, and you're still my cousin in my heart. My mom and I are very happy you can stay in Ninghai, but did you stay at Ninghai due to other reasons? And cousin, it's my freedom who I want to dance with and who I let on my car. Cousin, you seem to have changed a lot. Su Jingwen sighed. She felt this strange discomfort. However, Ning Qingxue stood up. Jingwen, I'm going. I'll call you when I have time. She really couldn't tolerate this Xia Weizheng anymore. Wait! Su Jingwen stopped Ning Qingxue and turned back to look at Xia Weizheng. She said hardly, cousin, I have some business with Qingxue today. If there's something, we can talk about it tomorrow. Xia Weizheng's face changed but soon recovered a smile. In that case, I won't disturb you, see you. Xia Weizheng walked out of the cafe with a bad face. But after a while, he made a call. Auntie. Yes, it's me Weizheng. I want to come over. Yes, there are some things that I can't explain clearly over the phone. Okay. I'm coming over immediately. Seeing Xia Weizheng's car leave, Su Jingwen suddenly realized her words might have been too heavy. Was her cousin angry? By the way, Qingxue, you said you have something to ask me? Did you want to ask how to use the charm? Su Jingwen turned and asked Ning Qingxue. Yes, indeed. Ning Qingxue saw Xia Weizheng had gone and sat down again. Su Jingwen said helplessly, actually, my cousin is a very nice person. He's just used to being a bit dominant. Don't mind him. Oh, let's not talk about this. The charms are actually very easy to use. For Spirit Cleansing Charm and Fireball, you just need to throw it out and say Lin. As for the Body Protection Charm, just make a little pouch and keep it on you. I don't know about the others though. Ning Qingxue didn't expect the charms were so easy to use. Other than a Fireball Charm, she also had a Body Protection Charm and 2 Evil Protection Charms. Jingwen, the main things I wanted to ask you about are these. I thought you needed some movements. I didn't expect it to be so easy. If I knew, I would have just called you. Su Jingwen smiled. You and Yimo are both at Luotsong. Why don't you ask him to teach you? Remember to ask him to give me some more next time you see him. How do you know Yimo's at Luotsong? And what did you want to ask me about? Ning Qingxue asked curiously. She didn't really believe Yimo was at Luotsong. Su Jingwen must have gotten it wrong. Su Jingwen nodded and took out the bracelet on her hand and said, this is a magical artifact. Yimo gave it to me, but I didn't know about it at the time. It's called the 6 Beads of Fortune. It's the most precious gift I have received. Su Jingwen didn't finish, but Ning Qingxue knew what she meant. She also felt the bracelet on her hands and said after a while, thank you, Jingwen. The 3 beads you gave me saved me once, but I can't return it to you now. I need to go out once. If the beads are still there when I come back, I will return them to you. Qingxue, is the place you're going dangerous? Su Jingwen knew that Ning Qingxue understood the powers of the beads since one was missing on hers too. Ning Qingxue agreed and said after a while, I came back to confirm something and make preparations. The place I'm going in is indeed dangerous. Ning Qingxue didn't lie. She really came back to confirm and ask Su Jingwen about the way to use the charms. And she needed to prepare some equipment for mountain climbing. At this moment, the scene in which Yimo fell off the cliff kept replaying in her brain. She couldn't calm down. Regardless of whether it was him, she couldn't feel calm her entire life if she didn't go and see. As long as she confirmed that person wasn't Yimo, she would feel better. But if Yimo really fell off the cliff, she didn't know what to do. The moment she met Yimo in the desert and he turned to leave, She knew that her heart was taken away by him. There was no other reason. Even though she tried to resist and hide, she couldn't forget about that figure. She once thought she would never truly love someone, but when reality came, she found that she just loved him, and there was no logic to it. Su Jingwen really wanted to ask Ning Qingxue where Yemo was, but last time, she said he wasn't at Luotsong. If she asked now, it would seem as though she didn't believe her. Her plans of getting back the bracelet also failed. Since Ning Qingxue already said that, she couldn't embarrass herself to ask for it back. Qingxue, in that case, I still have 2 here, I'll give it to you. If you didn't use them when you come back, you can return it to me. Su Jingwen thought and still gave it to her. Since Ning Qingxue used 1 before, it meant she really met danger before. Ning Qingxue shook her head. No need. I'm already very sorry that I took 3 from you. I can't take more. Qingxue, if the place you're going is very dangerous, you should ask for help and I can help you too. Su Jingwen realized that Ning Qingxue really had something. Ning Qingxue shook her head. She thought about it many times. If that person was really Yemo, she couldn't ask for the government. She knew Yemo had some power and had strong conflict with the Song family due to her. If she asked other people to help her with Yemo, the Song family would get news of this at the first moment. That was not good for Yemo. Even if he was fine from falling off the cliff, the Song family would still make him not fine. I'm going Jingwen if I don't... Never mind. Ning Qingxue didn't explain anything to Su Jingwen. Seeing Ning Qingxue walk out of the cafe in a lonely yet emaciated fashion, Su Jingwen lost herself in thought. What did she mean? She asked her the way to use the charm. Did she have them? If she didn't meet Yemo, where did she get the charms from? Su Jingwen felt that something in Ning Qingxue's words were wrong, but she couldn't tell what exactly. Ning Qingxue returned to the house, but Su Wei hasn't returned yet. She sat on the stone board Yemo once slept on. Felt cool. She seemed to see Yemo walk over. She focused her mind and thought. He slept on this before and it was really hard on him. He was really dumb. Her eyes then turned to that big tree. Yemo also spent many nights there. No matter what, she should go find him. Su Wei just opened the door and saw Ning Qingxue lost in thought. She said with surprise and joy, Qingxue, when did you come back? Ning Qingxue saw Su Wei and quickly replied, I just came back at noon. Su Wei, thanks for helping me take care of the grass for so long. Do you know who planted the other grass? Su Wei smiled. It's nothing, it's something simple. Yemo asked someone to plant them there and told me to look after it. Yemo said he needed to go on a far journey. You both really love grass, haha. Ning Qingxue heard this and her face immediately went pale. She had come to the realization that the person who fell off the cliff must be Yemo, otherwise. How could there be such a coincidence? Are you okay, Qingxue? Su Wei just realized that Ning Qingxue was not only fatigued, but her spirit wasn't well either. Nothing? Ning Qingxue smiled and said, I still need to go out a while. Please take care of these grass for me. She paused before continuing. If I come back rather late and the grass germs are withered, I will tell my mum not to touch that flower pot. Let the pot stay there. I'm going to rest. I'm tired. Su Wei looked worriedly as Ning Qingxue walked into the room. She felt Ning Qingxue's words were strange. That flower pot had been there for many years. The house owner didn't move it, so why would her mother move it? Ning Qingxue rested for a night. Since she had made up her mind, she no longer felt lost. She spent half a day the second day and prepared all sorts of tools and things for outdoor survival. Then, she put the body protection charm and evil protection charm in a bag she made and hung it on her waist. Then, she rushed towards Xianxia quickly. There were quite a lot of people carrying a big bag like her. Ning Qingxue had been here before and was familiar with the way. She didn't choose other places and went to the place she went with the tour group. This was because she could only see the peak from there. When Ning Qingxue came to the no man's land region, she saw a big board hung outside. There were some tourists on the side. Ning Qingxue could tell the sign was just hung up. It wasn't there when she came. It said accidents occurred, so access was forbidden. She frowned. If she wasn't allowed in, what could she do? She looked at the middle-aged woman at her side. Thought, and then asked, "May I ask, do you know what happened here?" The woman looked at Ning Qingshua's clothing and knew she came to Xianxia for holiday. She immediately said, "I heard a tour group encountered sky ditches there 2 days ago. Then one person went missing. That night, there was the rescue team that went inside. But now, none of the rescue team had come out and have all lost contact. Now, it's forbidden to go in and they're about to lock down this place. There are people from the army here. Of course, I heard this from others. I don't know if it's real." Ning Qingshua's heart skipped. Of course she knew this was true. She didn't expect none of the rescue team had made it out. Was it really that dangerous? But regardless of that, if the military came in the afternoon and locked this place down, wouldn't she have no chance of entering? She looked around and saw there wasn't much people and planned when she could go in when no one looked. There was no one guarding now, so it really wasn't hard sneaking in. There were people gathered there discussing about the eerie event 2 nights ago. Ning Qingxue, however, carefully avoided them and quickly snuck in, disappearing in the woods. That woman who talked with Ning Qingxue chatted with others and seemed to have remembered Ning Qingxue after a while. She turned around, but Ning Qingxue was gone. Her face was immediately scared pale. The girl behind her was gone, and there was no other way except into the woods. Ning Qingxue quickly came to the place where they set up camp last time. It was an open space and it was in the middle of the day, but Ning Qingxue had a frosty feeling. She subconsciously shivered. The dead silence made her skin tingle. She remembered there used to be bird humming here when they camped here, but now it was just dead silence. If it wasn't for Yimo, she wouldn't come here a second time no matter what. She carefully walked over to the campsite. Not far ahead was the sky ditch. The large hole was still there, and there were no marks around. However, Ning Qingxue felt a sudden frosty feeling coming at her as though something was trying to grab her. Ning Qingxue was so scared that she didn't dare to move. She realized that it seemed to be blurry ahead. The evil repellent charm near her chest spread a warmness which dispersed quick. Ning Qingxue seemed to have heard a sharp scream. It was the same scream they heard that day. Then, she felt that approaching frosty feeling disappear, and so did the tingling of her skin. The misty environment also seemed to have cleared up. Is it really useful? Ning Qingxue subconsciously touched it. Although she didn't know what happened just then, she felt it was related to the charm at her chest. The sky ditch was still the same, but just without that frightening feeling. Ning Qingxue took a deep breath and continued forward, avoiding the hole. A shoe appeared in front of her, giving her quite a scare. She quickly avoided it. It was a military shoe. Was it from the rescue team? Ning Qingxue didn't dare to keep thinking. She had the feeling that something was constantly looking at her but afraid to close in. It should be due to the evil repellent charm. Thinking about this, Ning Qingxue didn't dare to linger around and quickly ran towards the cliff. After running out a few kilometers, Ning Qingxue just realized that her clothes were torn up. However, there was still that almost indiscernible feeling that she was being watched. She suddenly turned around and her skin tingled again. She looked nervously at a place. She felt that thing was there. That feeling was very strange, not logical at all. But after experiencing all this, she was no longer a non-believer. She held tightly the fireball charm, looked behind her, waved the charm and said, "I don't care what you are, but if you dare to come close, I will burn you with the fireball. I will get my husband to eradicate your soul later." Although Ning Qingxue shouted this out, it was just to boost her courage. She didn't know if her feelings were right. Perhaps she was just scaring herself, but this was all she could do. That frosty feeling seemed to have kept staring at Ning Qingxue for a while, but it also seemed to be scared of Ning Qingxue's words and slowly disappeared. Ning Qingxue felt it when the frigidness disappeared and immediately turned and ran. Despite carrying a big bag and having obstacles everywhere, Ning Qingxue still ran out a few kms in one breath before dropping the bag and catching her breath desperately. What made her feel safe was that frosty feeling finally disappearing and there were birds humming again. She didn't know if she was scaring herself, but perhaps there really was those unexplainable things in the world. She rested for a while before taking out some cream and rubbing it on her skin. Her snowy white skin had marks everywhere. Ning Qingxue rested a while before looking around. This was a valley and a small stream ran by Ning Qingxue. It seemed very poetic, but Ning Qingxue didn't have that feeling at all. She was on high alert. If it wasn't because she could find Emo in front, perhaps she would have collapsed. She drank some water and packed her bag. Just when she wanted to stand up, a black shadow dashed over. The speed was so fast that Ning Qingxue couldn't even react. Stump! The black shadow bumped into a barrier that arose in front of Ning Qingxue and was thrown into the stream. However, it quickly crawled out and looked at Ning Qingxue with terror, turned and ran. If there wasn't the splash of water at the stream, people would have thought it was a blur of the eye. Ning Qingxue realized now that the animal that ran away seemed like a feral monkey. She subconsciously looked at her bracelet. Another bead broke. She didn't even get into the depths and lost another abad. She didn't know how long she could use the evil repellent charm for. She just used it once, but luckily, she had two. If it weren't for those, she might have died many times just then. Her back sweated and she didn't dare to stay. She ran quickly towards the cliff. She was feeling lucky. If she didn't ask about how to use the charms at Ninghai, she wouldn't even have made it here. After being ambushed twice, Emo was more careful. He knew there was danger everywhere and anything could happen. He wasn't afraid of attacks but instead afraid of bitten with venom. In that case, he would die since he had no medicine nor could he use his chi. A thorny bush blocked Emo's path. He looked around, but the visibility was too low, not to mention he still couldn't use his spirit sense now. As for what was inside the thorns, he didn't know. However, he knew that if he didn't make a way, he could only retreat. If he couldn't find a safe place to recover, he would still die. He would die either way, so he didn't care and hacked towards the bush with his sword. He had to admit that Bien Po's sword was good indeed. The strong-looking thorns were like hay under his sword. He carefully hacked the thorns aside and made a way. Emo didn't know how large this pact of thorns were, but he hacked for more than half an hour before seeing the other side. It was a cliff face. This cliff face seemed very wide. Emo thought that if he could make a hole on the cliff face and cover the entrance with thorns, then he only needed to find some food and could recover safely. With hope in sight, although he was extremely tired and dizzy, his sword didn't stop at all. When Emo finally hacked his way through, there was a buzzing sound. Emo looked and discovered there were tens of huge wasps charging at him. The wasps hid in the thorns. If they didn't move, they wouldn't be seen at all. Each one was the size of a fist. He didn't need to look to know that it was pretty much one life gone if he was stung. Plus, tens of them charged at him. Emo's sword turned into a veil of blade images. Although his sword technique wasn't as good as Bien Po, it wasn't hard for him to make a veil of sword images. It was just that his body was too weak now. After a while, none of this group of wasps ran away as they were all killed by Emo. Emo coughed and subconsciously looked around. There only seemed to be these wasps. He let out a gasp of relief and shook as he almost fell over. However, he used the sword to support him and stopped wobbling. Putrid stench came from behind him. Emo immediately knew it wasn't good. He was scared of being coiled by an anaconda the most, but it came. He only noticed it when the stench was behind him. Emo charged forward and swung his sword back. However, he had another fit of weakness. He couldn't even hold up the sword in his hand. The hack and slash before had used up his energy. It was just a brief moment and a cold stench, and he was already coiled. The snake didn't bite him but was trying to strangle him to death. Emo also felt himself suffocating. His head started to grow dizzy drastically, but he knew that if he fainted, he would die for sure. He bit down on the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. He forcefully twisted the sword in his hand, using all of his might to lever it to the outside. There was more sound around Ning Qingxue. Although she was still by herself in the forest, Ning Qingxue wasn't as scared as before. It was as though the chiming of the birds were much cuter than the dead silence near the sky ditch. Due to the animal attack, Ning Qingxue only rested for a little while and took out the telescope to look at the distance. Although she was closer to the cliff, she couldn't see as clear as she could before since the mist covered everything. Ning Qingxue didn't dare to linger. She already wasted a day's time. If something happened to Emo, she wouldn't know what to do. In the forest, other than some open spaces, most places seemed dark and eerie. She was scared that if she lingered on, that terrifying thing would chase her. Luckily, the evil repellent charm would spread some warmness from time to time, making her not too afraid of the dark surrounding. Xianxia didn't seem to feel fatigue trekking in this primal forest. She just kept walking, knowing the direction of the cliff and not caring about the rest. She was also thinking. She didn't know if it was due to Yi-Mo saving her last time or because she was tensed up mentally that her stamina seemed a lot better. Luckily, Xianxia didn't encounter peaks that were too high. Although her luck was good, she still collapsed in fatigue after the second peak. When she looked at herself, her clothes were tattered. Her jeans were ripped, and her coat had holes everywhere. Now, Xianxia knew that she prepared a lot of things for survival but not clothes. It was dark now. If it wasn't dark, she didn't feel much walking. But once it was, she started to worry. She subconsciously felt the evil repellent charm. One of the had disappeared for no reason. There was only one left. She immediately knew that she used one up without her even knowing. It seemed that there were a lot of strange things spying on her on the way. If it wasn't due to the charm, she might be in more danger. Thinking about this, Xianxia didn't dare to stay. She ate some food and took out a mine light. She continued forward like this in the dark. In less than 2 hours, another black shadow darted onto her back. She was concentrated on walking that she didn't even know the body protection charm had repelled the black shadow away, and her bag was even torn by the thing. She didn't even notice her bag getting lighter and lighter. She only knew that she had to keep walking. She was afraid that once she stopped, she would feel scared about the deadly silence and darkness. When it was just dawn, Xianxia flipped her messy her. She didn't even believe she could walk for an entire night. Something supported her spirit. Perhaps it was fear. Perhaps it was Yi-Mo. She took off her bag. She even complimented herself for walking a whole night while carrying such a heavy bag. She didn't encounter any of those sky ditches. Although she still couldn't see the cliff in this place, she was sure it wasn't far. She also knew that although she walked for so long, she didn't actually travel far. Most of the time was wasted on small hills. She was prepared to eat something and took her bag off. That was when she had a big shock. Other than some ropes, there were just climbing equipment. There was a big hole in her bag. Most of the food, water, and medications had fallen out. There was just 2 bottles of water and a bag of biscuits left. She felt her pocket and realized her phone was gone too. After being dumbfounded for a while, she thought about her situation. She didn't dare to go back and look for them. She didn't even dare to look back. She knew would feel scared. She felt the charms on her chest. Even the body protection charm was gone. She didn't even know when it disappeared. The remaining evil repellent charm was a lot more withered. She looked at the bag and knew that if it wasn't for the rope, the rest of the climbing tools would have fallen out. She quickly cut off a bit of the rope and tied up the bag. Although she was extremely tired, she didn't dare to stay there and rest. When the first ray of sunlight shone into the forest, she finally felt relieved. Those things that made her frightened disappeared. At least, there was no more of those strange howls at night. Xianxia quickly walked to a high point. When she wanted to take a look through the telescope, she realized she had walked to the bottom of the mountain. At this moment, she wanted to cry. With her own hard work, she walked a whole night through this horrifying primal forest. She remembered clearly that this was where Yi-Mo fell. She had thought about it countless times and wouldn't be wrong. She didn't want to go through the unknown things in the forest again. Breathing the morning fresh air, Xianxia started to find ways to enter the bottom of the cliff. However, she looked for 2 hours and realized there was no entrance. The only way to the bottom of the cliff was to climb up the cliff and go down from there. Xianxia returned to the bottom of the mountain. Luckily, it wasn't hard to climb from here as the place was slanted. She didn't know if Yi-Mo came up from here. Xianxia really couldn't understand why Yi-Mo would go up from here and fight with someone. If she didn't see it with her own eyes, she wouldn't believe it. There were a few peaches at the mountain road. They were obviously immature, but she was hungry, so she picked some and ate it. It was bitter. She never had this, but in order to give her energy, she had to eat it. She ate another half pack of biscuits and finally felt recovered a little. Then she continued. She knew she was supported by her spirit, and once she fell, there would be no way for her to get up again. At this moment, she was sure her body was much better than before. It was definitely related to Yi Mo's treatment that night. If it wasn't due to that, perhaps she wouldn't be able to make it here even with her determined spirit. Although this peak wasn't steep, it was still very hard for Xianxia. She put all the tools on her waist and started to climb carefully. Emo and the two martial artists could go up easily, but Xianxia had to go up step by step. Starting from 7 in the morning, she climbed till 2 p.m. before reaching the peak. The scene almost made Xianxia vomit. 2 people were dead, cut into 4 pieces. But soon, Xianxia saw the place she stared at before with her telescope. She was sure that Emo fell from here. She walked to the edge and looked down. There were layers of white mist. She couldn't see the bottom. She shivered. Would he still be alive falling from here? Her rope was 100 m at most. This cliff seemed to be about 1 kilometer tall. How could she get down? If she didn't get down, what was the point of coming here? Did she have the courage to return from where she came? Xianxia just thought about this now. She never even thought about a way of getting back. Was she going back? If Emo was no longer alive, what would be the point of her going back? Xianxia shook her head and put aside these thoughts. She looked at the 2 dead person and no longer had the fear she had before. Xianxia walked to a body and picked up a small sword. She found in joy that this body had a huge bag beside it. She opened it and it was full of rope. She quickly pulled it out and now realized that it was made from a fiber she had never seen before. It was very thin, but when she tested it, it was very sturdy. It was even sturdier than the rope she prepared. She looked at the big loop and realized perhaps it was 1 kilometer long. At the end, there was a metal hook. Xianxia gasped a sigh of relief. Without this rope, she could only climb down from here carefully, but she didn't even need to climb to know that it would be death. This cliff was too steep. Even with the rocks and sticks sticking out, it would still be highly likely for her to die. Xianxia carefully secured the rope on a rock and tested it before tying it to her waist. Then, she grabbed the tools and slided down the cliff slowly.